is going to either vote for her or Donald Trump. She's trying to move people who have suggested, give me a reason to vote for you. And that's really what it's about today for her.
And what about her background and her experience? A lot of people have talked about this is the prosecutor versus the convicted felon. She was, of course, in the debate club at Howard University. What about her background?
Again, a fine line she's got to walk. A lot of people have suggested because Trump's been on this particular stage 7 times, they're acting as if she is a true novice. I think we saw what she can do and handle during the DNC. There are a number of people. I was with some large fundraisers over the weekend, and their suggestion is if she comes close to the performance she had at the DNC, they'll be very pleased with what they'll be able to bring in and garner after tonight.
She has already outraised Donald Trump 3-1 in this last cycle. Ed Gordon, thank you so much. We also want to talk about the rules tonight, because that is part of the dynamic. The presidential debate is hosted by ABC and the network, and both of the candidates agreed to these following rules. The debate will run 90 minutes with 2 breaks. There will be no opening statements. Each candidate's mic will be muted when it's not their turn to speak. Closing statements are 2 minutes, and once again, there's no audience. Now, there was a virtual coin flip that took place earlier this month. Trump's campaign won, and the toss there, since he won, well, he chose to have the final closing statement. The Harris campaign chose to stand the vice president at the right lectern. The other interesting thing that was talked about, you may have heard, was this controversy over the microphones. Nancy Cordes, explain what was that about? Why was this such a big deal?
Right. It seems like such a trivial element, right? The problem for Kamala Harris is that back when this was the Biden campaign, Biden's aides chose to strike a deal with the Trump campaign that whoever was not speaking in the debates would have their microphone turned off.
And that's because in 2020 it got out of control.
It was a slugfest.
Yeah.
They were talking over each other. Joe Biden, a little bit hard of hearing. So if he's being talked over, he's not necessarily going to hear what Trump is saying or what the moderators are saying. And so that was the agreement. Now Harris is the nominee, and she'd love to have the mic up the whole time. First of all, because the campaign thinks that one of her strongest moments in her vice presidential debate in 2020 was when she was there with Mike Pence, and he was talking over her, and she said, excuse me, I'm speaking. And it's a quick way to show dominance. But if you can't hear him because he's speaking out of turn, then what's the point? And so Trump said he was for it.
Trying to look at my alerts, which I think are broken.
But Trump campaign officials were not.
Website's down, so I guess it's a no alert kind of day. You hate to see it.
Have not changed. The microphones will be down for whoever is not speaking.
I mean, how do you think it changes things? Because we are in a period now, John, where, and CBS has an upcoming debate, the vice presidential debate. The moderators are there to moderate the conversation.
Anywho,
the candidates.
thanks to everybody who's resubbing. Girl Kisser, Shaz Lovable.
When the mics
I freaking love whales, big ass gorilla.
Well, can I just answer another question first, Nora, which is
no.
Zog fries.
I will sit here mute. No, we're talking about.
Parshot, Parker
Major touched on this. The things that Donald Trump's campaign is having to get him to do to restrain himself for a brief 90-minute.
How about that Saquon Barkley guy? I don't think he's going to be here tonight.
That's extraordinary. We will see evidence of temperament in the 90 minutes, but that is an evidence of temperament as well, which is that he is the kind of person that requires mics to be cut off, thoroughgoing instructions not to stray down multiple garden paths. That tells us something about the presidency. You need a calm temperament for that job. So we've learned something before the debate has even taken place. But back to your point, and it's a very important one, Nora, in the age of multiple falsehoods and misinformation, it is the candidate's job to fact check, but it's also our job when we're not moderating.
Trying to launch Streamlabs, and it's just so, the website's so bad.
Wait a minute, I'm going to decide that a person who
are they muting mics or is it open all the time? Yeah, they talked about this 2 minutes ago. They're muted.
What they say will inform my choices.
Our first J-Man, thanks for the sub.
Affect my life.
Or Acid Rep, thanks for the sub.
Maybe I'm going to value that a little bit more highly.
It will be part of the dynamic, certainly.
Anywho,
guardrails that are in place.
Here's our drinking game rules. I'll go ahead and pin these.
when the other person is speaking. It's an excellent point. All right, ahead, the path to the White House, how each campaign could get to the magic number of 270 electoral votes.
Pin. Yes. I updated some of them ahead of stream. Some things that are no longer relevant.
Hey Flo, cool leg warmer.
I feel like we might be getting some explicit racism hits.
No, my apartment was robbed last night. Took my cable-ready TV, VCR, portable cassette player.
Yep, all the latest tech.
How are the
Renters insurance, like their home insurance.
how's the audio levels, by the way, chat?
Same 24/7 protection.
How's my speaking volume compared to the
This is the best day ever.
Well, I still got robbed.
compared to the
A good deal shouldn't make you choose.
this Subway advertisement?
Oh, there's 20% off any sub, any size.
Wait, Subway did what? 20% off any sub, any size?
Yep, for a limited time, get 20% off any foot long or 20% off any 6-inch when you order in the app. Get 20% off your favorite sub at Subway while the deal is still on. Enjoy an MVP reward and even more great deals.
I'm much louder than the Subway advertisement.
What can I get you?
I have the 50-cent bone.
Cover your mouth. They could steal your order.
The 50-cent boneless wings.
I'll have the same.
Perfect. They'll never see it coming.
I've turned it up.
Need inspiration?
Hi,
Shop
Coach.
Ralph's. For thousands of appetizing ingredients and meals, savings like $600 in digital coupons and up to $1 off per gallon at the pump.
Change
So you
this
get
one to
big flavors
adjective.
And big savings. Ralph's, fresh for everyone.
We are, like you and I are, starting something with or without Collie, aren't we? I mean, I'm not trying to marry you or anything.
Hannibal Lecter shit.
He brought us together, Gordon. We're not giving up. Sorry.
Hamas could be a sip word.
Have him back. We made a mistake.
We have Israel on there. It's like, I feel like we're gonna double dip. Why is that one in bold? Because we hit that one once.
CBS News app.
Come on, Julia. Oh no. I will if you will. You go, gal. That's right.
Let me see if you can find me.
I want to make sure that my voice is heard, but also that I lift up other voices.
You can't write a better script.
Find medical problems. True.
We'll see you 7 o'clock sharp.
Coming up our series. Wait a minute. Tom, is that you working the camera? Keep leaning
We'll add quote weird. Oops.
You mean not say?
I swear they should have a camera during the commercial. Such a good time here.
Your morning routine just got better. CBS Mornings.
This is CBS.
Ooh, one drink. Tax returns, this isn't getting talked about anymore. We can update this. Bitcoin. Anything save the pets? That's the recent racism whistle. Oh, don't worry. We have that one covered. Ooh, RFK mention. I was thinking about that while I was driving home.
More border patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either.
RFK mention.
Well, that was the fateful debate 75 days ago that changed the course of this presidential campaign. Since then, polling has shown a razor-tight race. For a closer look at the key
Do I not have
battleground
Elon on
states and to
this?
show us
I thought I had
potential
Elon here
paths to
somewhere.
victory, our elections and surveys executive director, Anthony Salvanto, joins us. All right, Anthony, I love this part of the night when we learn all the different ways that each candidate could win.
Indeed. Good to talk to you, Nora. This is the fun part. I'm going to show you just how close this is and what it means. When we look at the fact that, remember, the presidential election is
Move that
decided in the
one.
states, and
Or
we
move
think
this
it will
one
come
because it's
down
never going to
just
happen.
7 of those states, the closest ones, they're the battlegrounds. Now, across the Sun Belt, there are a few. We're going to see Nevada and Arizona, and then Georgia and North Carolina, all fast-growing, diverse states. And then in the upper Midwest, we've got Michigan, Wisconsin,
This actually got some play on the DNC.
Now, you want to see just how tight these are? I'll show you some of our latest polls. In Pennsylvania, dead even. It's 50-50. And then in Michigan, it's a 1-point difference. That's within the margin of error. Similar story in Wisconsin. It's a 2-point difference.
Hogan mentioned that's not going to happen.
Those are examples of what we mean by razor tight. So how does this play out then on election night? Well, we're going to take a look at what we call the paths to victory for each of the candidates. So I'm going to
Here's the only states
map.
that matter.
And the states you're going to see in red, we think they're going to go Republican. The ones in blue, we think they're going to go Democratic. And those battleground states I talked about, those are in gray. So we can play a little hypothetical game here. Let's start with Pennsylvania, and let's say, okay, Democrats won it last time. Let's suppose Harris can hold it this time. I'm going to put that in her column right there and light it up in blue. Now, if that happens, and that's an if she were to then also hold the states that Biden held in the upper Midwest, I'm going to put Michigan in her column, and then I'm going to put Wisconsin in there, and that, all else equal, would get Harris to the 270 that she
What's the blue dot in
would need.
Nebraska?
Okay.
Nebraska does split
and
electorate.
That could be through those Sun Belt states. She could, if she flips North Carolina after the Democrats lost it last time.
Same thing with Maine at the top right.
Keeps Georgia in the Democratic column, which Joe Biden narrowly won, and then goes out west and holds on to Arizona and also holds on to Nevada. That also gets her over 275. Now for Trump, and this shows you also just how pivotal Pennsylvania can be, here's a hypothetical for him. He wins Pennsylvania, let's suppose, like he did in 2016, and then he could hold North Carolina like he did last time, and if he were to flip Georgia back into his column, that gets Trump to 270. So those are just some of the scenarios that could play out. But the big story is, in a race this close, every vote, every state starts to matter, Nora.
Anthony Salvanto, thank you so much. And
Yippee.
of course, those battleground states, those 7 states could not play a more important role. So let's turn now to Major Garrett. He's got to look at where the campaigns have focused their time. Hi there, Major.
Hi, Nora. Anthony loves maps and numbers. I love maps and numbers. This map, though,
Every
no
state starts to matter
numbers,
except for
only
43.
blobs.
Well,
And I
they
love
matter.
Blobs, okay, folks? I love the blobs, too. All right. Very
It's just
simply,
that it's
travel.
It's already
during
won.
this 2024 campaign,
They've already
blue,
won.
That's where the Democratic ticket is
Those
gone. Red,
states,
that's
so.
where the Republicans gone. The gray blob, I told you I love the blobs. Both. Guess what, folks? All the blobs are in the battleground states. Hello, that's exactly right. Look at the blobbiest state of all. No disrespect, Pennsylvania. God love you, the Commonwealth. More blobs than anyone else. Republicans and Democrats are going to and have been descending on Pennsylvania. Same thing with Michigan, Wisconsin. Interestingly,
We got
North Carolina, Nora,
some
75
tequila
days ago,
today,
after
the
that
most
first debate, the Trump
American
campaign thought
drink.
North Carolina was done and dusted. Over. Not anymore. They're spending a lot of time there, and of course, Nevada and
Out
Arizona.
of
These
the Among Us
blobs are
shot
not
glass.
just representative of the thing that candidates value most, their time and their rallies and their exposure. They're also indicative.
I'll pour this
campaign ad
shot
spending,
and I'll
digital
drink
and
it when
television
the
and radio. They're
that'll sit
also
on my desk
indicative
for 30
of
minutes, and I'll
offices
drink
for
it
the
whenever the
campaigns,
debate begins.
Volunteers, door knocking, all of the fundamentals in campaigns. So wherever you see blobs, that's where the campaigns are most.
Otherwise, it's Bacardi and Coke.
If you're an undecided voter in any of these blob states, to use a football term, have your head on a swivel. You are likely to be tackled walking into the grocery store by one of these 2 campaigns.
It's an excellent point. And of those 7 battleground states, Trump only won North Carolina in the last election. So it's a competitive again this year. But
I sit my glass for too long, and now it's all there's so much condensation on the glass.
Garrett, thank you so much. Let's turn to
Who you think's
another
going to win the
policy
election?
issue this election cycle, and that is
Currently
reproductive
points to
rights.
Kamala
The issue
Harris.
of abortion kept Democrats competitive in the 2022 midterms, and it is helping boost Vice President Harris today. Take a look at this new CBS News poll. It finds Harris leads Trump by a wide margin among those in the battleground states of Michigan,
allow me to point you guys towards
and
my
Wisconsin, who say abortion is a major
fantasy team.
in their vote. Those are the 3 states that you will hear us refer to as
My,
the blue wall that Democrats have to win in order to win
the
the
website took off
presidency.
my.
Margaret, what about this
It
issue
removed
of
my
reproductive
profile
rights and abortion
picture. This
rights
is
that
fucked up.
Kamala Harris is
Anyways,
likely going to hammer Donald Trump on tonight?
She will, because even
my
before
president
she was
is
the nominee,
Aaron
it was
Rodgers,
Vice President Harris's
and also
job
my
to
starting
prosecute
quarterback.
This part of the case.
We lost
The
because he
abortion
sucks
issue was
last
something
week.
Joe Biden said he
Alternatively,
personally
we
felt
also have
comfortable discussing.
the
So
RFK
she was
Biden
the
super
one on
ticket,
college campuses out there talking and trying to rally support
where
for
I
people
got
concerned about access to all
fucking
sorts of
Jake
reproductive
Moody last night. Anybody else the recipient of
9
the
to
fucking
10
Jake
states,
Moody
depending
26
how you
points?
calculate this,
Lost by
abortion initiatives
0.4
will
week
now
1.
ballot
What the
themselves.
fuck is
So
this?
that may lead to turnout, and that could actually help in states like Arizona and Nevada, where you will see it. There are places like New York where Democrats are talking about other initiatives also being related to abortion.
Load of bullshit,
and
bro.
hoping it boosts turnout. That's the cynical
Surely
political
30-point
take.
cushion. It was actually a
She will make the
35-point
argument
cushion.
that this is simply about freedom. I mean, even to her walk-on song, she is driving home that message that it is about choice rather than having to be about the procedure itself. So it's a case she can uniquely make, and she certainly says to Donald Trump, you put those justices on the court who struck down Roe versus Wade.
We talked about that.
At least the
message that we
Eagles
all
won the
watched during
game.
The Democratic National Convention, where you saw the Democratic
I hope they
Party
talk
try to
about the
embrace
PS5
ideas
Pro
of
price
freedom.
point.
Freedom
That's
to make
definitely
your
what
own
most Americans care
reproductive
about.
choice. As the vice presidential candidate,
We need to
Governor Walz says,
we
"Mind your
need
own
to
damn
make sure that
business,"
this
as he
Japanese
says, it
company
relates to a
stops
number of things
overcharging
for him
for
on this
video
particular
games.
case, talking about reproductive rights. How do you see that playing out, Nancy?
I think Harris is definitely going to bring it up tonight if the moderators don't. The Harris campaign assumes that there will be a question to Donald Trump about abortion.
Hope something tragic happens to both of them
she's going to bring it up
tonight.
because he's kind of been all over the map. He's been
Okay, let's say that
claiming lately
happens.
that he isn't anti-abortion, and he
They get
has
struck by a
held-
meteor.
staked out a number of different policy positions on this
Do we
issue,
like
so
the
she's
outcome
going to want to
afterwards,
set the
where
record straight
there's
and make the
2
case
different
that
candidates
she
running?
and she alone is the candidate.
Will this
for reproductive
fundamentally
rights.
change things?
What about that? Because certainly if we reach way back into Donald Trump's life, he donated to Planned Parenthood and other so-called pro-choice or pro-abortion rights groups. Then he moved forward and appointed 3 justices.
We probably
to the
just
Supreme
end up
Court.
doing
He
Tim Walz
proudly
versus JD
says,
Vance
"I helped
at that point, and then it's a
overturn
fucking
Roe versus
landslide.
Wade." But now that this issue has become so dominant in so many states, we heard stunningly Donald Trump announce
There's
he was going to have the
JD
government
Vance
for
would
IVF
not
fertility treatment.
win a presidential campaign.
on this issue, and I think
It's honestly
that's partially because he's
baffling that they
been
chose
a
him
little bit
for
at
VP
sea
in the first
since
place.
Harris became the nominee. And so this was one of his many different gambits to try to find a comfortable place in handling her candidacy. But I think the larger question, which will be so interesting, is on this
Walz
question of
is
freedom.
1 year older than
Because
Harris.
if
People
the
don't care
campaign is
about how
who's
old
gonna be thinking about
other
me
people
when you're in
actually
the
are.
Oval
Is that,
Office.
like,
Well, the conversation
people
here
always
is for
mention
women.
Biden's
Who's gonna be
age, and
thinking
he's
about me
barely
and my
older than
choices
Trump
and
is.
autonomy over my body? But Harris is making a larger claim, which is, I will be thinking about you when I'm in the Oval Office. And
People
these
care about
kinds of
how old
decisions
they
have to be
look,
made.
and
so if
Tim
she
Walz
can
looks way
prosecute the case
older.
and make it more broad, it feeds into her larger, biggest, really campaign argument, which is, I'll be thinking about you, he'll be thinking of himself, and that will keep him from thinking about you, and things will happen which will not work for you.
But, you know, John, one of the things that on this issue is so tricky for Donald Trump is also what it does within the dynamics of the conservative movement. Mike Pence, his former vice president, came out against him and his candidacy specifically on the issue of abortion and saying he wasn't pro-life enough. That and fiscal conservatism, he said, were where he drew the line, not January 6th, which was an interesting position to stake out. But it underscores that there is a part of the conservative movement, particularly evangelical Christians, who aren't comfortable with the fishtailing you talked about, nor the fact that in the
JD Vance is a Four Seasons type of event election night. It just does something absolutely embarrassing. Like, dude, the Four Seasons thing was so funny.
The other issues we're
I
going
just
to talk
can't-
about coming up.
I
the
can't believe they
economy,
went
which
through
has
with it.
consistently been the top issue, and immigration, where no
Like,
doubt Trump is going to
after you
hammer
fuck it up, just be
Kamala
like,
Harris
oops,
on that
and then
tonight. Up
cancel
next,
the
we'll also
event.
take you
Don't
to a key
you shouldn't
county in the
still have it
battleground
there.
state of Pennsylvania to find out what voters want to hear from these presidential candidates tonight.
In the middle of Song of the Elves, tell them to wait. Well, Song of the Elves will be there for you later. Liz Cheney came out in support of Kamala. She came out in opposition of Trump.
Everyone's
No.
favorite employee at Bill's Bodega, where Bill uses Chewy to keep Cash hard at work, toys to keep his instincts sharp.
I forget, but yeah, was critical of
Even a new
Trump either way.
to let everyone know who's boss.
But also, it
And
is
with
not the
Chewy's
same
low
thing.
prices,
That's
Bill's left with more cash to spend on
it's implying support of Kamala, but
For
it
low
is not
prices and fast shipping,
it is not
for
stating
life with
it.
Pets, there's Chewy.
Karen's about to retire. Here's what's going into her retirement.
There's us. She raised us on our own.
I built the greatest economy and Biden ruined it on the list.
Free schools she's opened.
Kinda.
Turned out all right.
She's a friend. Our mothers could tell stories. She's a teacher.
She may be retiring, but she's not done.
I'm never gonna stop. Retirement is the sum of your life's work. Now what?
Um,
Get income for life and protect your life's work with Prudential.
One drink Taylor Swift mention. I don't think Taylor Swift's gonna get mentioned.
Applebee's. Can I interest you in America's favorite boneless wings for just 50 cents each?
I'll have the 50-cent bone.
Cover your mouth. They could steal your order.
How the best economy and worst economy is within 4 years of each other,
I'll have the 50-cent boneless.
and also not based in reality.
Perfect.
Wild and crazy part.
Never see it coming.
I came here for one reason.
Put Abraham Lincoln back on the list. That's on a different list.
To make something of myself. But something's wrong. They did something to me. I chose you.
Ew.
News app. This is CBS.
I think Tyreek Hill might get a mention. Probably not. I think the list is plenty filled.
Come on, Julia. Oh, no. I will if you will. You go, gal. That's right.
Yo, Flip is, thanks for the tier 1. The Streamlabs website is seemingly down, so I believe that the alerts are broken.
Can't write a better script.
We'll see you 7 o'clock sharp.
Coming up, our series. Wait a minute. Tom, is that you working the camera?
Keep leaning out of your close-up.
How do you say Tony and Nate?
You mean Natte?
I swear they should have.
The assassination attempt on the list already. You can click on it and look.
Just got better. CBS Mornings.
Are you confident that there will be a peaceful transfer of power?
President Biden's first interview since his historic announcement on CBS Sunday Morning.
Billy! Go Birds.
Welcome back to CBS News coverage of the presidential debate. Pennsylvania was the deciding state in the 2020 election. With its 20 electoral votes, the Keystone State formalized Joe Biden's victory over Donald Trump. And it is one of the 7 battleground states that CBS News is watching once again. Our congressional correspondent Nicole Killian is in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, a crucial suburban battleground, speaking with voters. Good evening, Nicole.
Hey, good evening to you, Nora. And Bucks County is considered one of those collar counties that surrounds Philadelphia, and it is a very pivotal county in the sense that it went for President Biden in 2020.
I love
and typically has gone for
shitty-
the Democrat in past presidential cycles.
shitty
But
phone
this
quality
cycle,
audio
Republican
on national TV.
registrations are up, and that is why this is a critical bellwether, depending on the voters who join us.
She
here
has a
tonight.
lav
And
mic.
by
Why does it
a
sound
quick
like
show
dog
of
shit?
hands, I would like to know who supports former President Trump and who supports Vice President Harris.
Buddy second from the left. Neither. But RFK voter?
I'm still undecided.
Tell us why, and
He's doing that just so he's the main character, guaranteed.
help make up your mind.
I definitely hope for this debate to actually help me choose tonight because it's a lot of lack of trust on both sides, and I want to see what both sides still have to offer without having to lose too much at the same time. I don't necessarily like leaning one way or the other, so I want to see what they have to say. And
What is bro waffling about? He just says, "Yeah, I want one of them to say something that I like."
I want our jobs to remain in America, and I would like to see the border situation get under control.
And you're someone who supports former President Trump. So do you. What do you want to hear tonight?
I want to hear how President Trump will go after Kamala in terms of policy and not go after personal attacks. I want him to just focus solely on policy. And
This dude's doing a voice. This is not how he speaks normally. He's doing a voice for TV.
For Kamala Harris, if she wants to get any support from independent voters, she needs to make sure she knows she can be trusted without a teleprompter or notes or her vice president. So I'm looking forward to see what the debate.
I don't understand this talking point
For those
because,
of
like,
you who support Vice
do we
President Harris, tell me what
have we not seen Kamala Harris go on debate stages before?
Any policies that people may still be
Do we think that this is going to be her first debate?
But mostly I want to see if it's possible to have a really good debate where people tell the truth.
Soliero, thank you for the prime.
Tell the truth and actually address the issues.
And you're a first-time voter, so what are you looking for?
I definitely agree. I want both of the candidates to debate in a respectful manner and really just debate their policies and not, like he said, personal attacks. And I just hope that it's a respectful debate that doesn't turn into, just interrupting and.
I don't think it's going to be about policy.
Like involve the debate,
Well, of course, Nora, we are going to be here all night watching this debate with our panel of voters. We'll be getting their reaction in real time and bring that to you later this evening.
Well, Nicole,
what a awkward ass way to watch it.
Some interesting things, and can't wait to check in with you after the debate.
I would hate to be in that
Joining us
room.
now are two of the best political
But I would do it anyways. I want to show up to one. I need to move to a battleground state and then become Mr. Undecided Voter and just show up to these things.
At our CBS Philadelphia station.
Think of all the airtime I could get.
You just heard from some of the voters right there in Bucks County. Talk about how important these Philadelphia suburbs are.
It's me, undecided_voter.
They are extremely important, Nora. Good evening to you.
You just.
The city of Philadelphia certainly is extremely
I just really don't know. Like, Kamala Harris would probably make a pretty good president, but Trump's really funny.
The city of Philadelphia with 81% of the vote over their competitor Donald Trump at the time. So this is an extremely important city. The suburbs are important as well. Democrats need to hold on to voter registrations, hold on to their support there in areas like Bucks County, which is
Not even that funny anymore. No new material. It's honestly so true. He's just playing the hits from 2016 still. Like, get new material, bro.
It was some of the highest voter turnout since 1984 in the city of Philadelphia. So Kamala Harris is going to need that kind of energy, that kind of support.
They keep calling Trump a dictator. Who's they?
In this election.
Natasha, you've heard us talk about Pennsylvania as such a huge electoral prize, a must-win states for these candidates. What are the issues you hear are important?
Is they some like a tweet that you saw?
To most Americans at this point. I mean, it's the economy, it's inflation, it's reproductive rights, it's crime in urban areas like the city of Philadelphia and some of the outlying areas. All of those are going to be issues that are on the ballot in this election. They will certainly come up in the debate tonight.
Undecided voter man.
To see where these candidates stand on these issues. It's going to make all the difference, and in a race that is already
I think Trump meme will be the
very, very
giant feast of McDonald's Big Macs at the White House. Yeah, it was for the national champion for NCAA football, which was the Clemson Tigers that year.
Pittsburgh area as well.
Whenever Trevor Lawrence is slinging the rock around for the Jacksonville Jaguars, I think of the photo of him looking at a cold Big Mac at the White House.
Thank you, John. How do you see things right now in the state of Pennsylvania?
Well, thank you, Nora. First of all, it's great to be with you and that awesome political team you have around you. There's no question that Pennsylvania is key. And Western Pennsylvania is
I
going to play a
bleed
very
orange and
important role
cum
in all
purple,
of this.
baby, go
You know, it
Tigers.
wasn't that many
You
years
should
ago
get that
when
checked
Western
out, probably.
Pennsylvania, particularly the counties that surround Allegheny County, Greater Pittsburgh, voted Democratic for president. When Al Gore ran in 2000,
It's
6
right
of the
down
10
the
counties
line.
out here voted Democratic. But in the recent elections, it's down to one county. One county, Allegheny, which is the Pittsburgh County, is the only county voting Democratic. So for Kamala Harris and for Donald Trump, the votes out here are absolutely essential. And winning
You
those
really
votes
want to win
requires
those
them to spend
votes.
time here. We just saw that the vice president spent the weekend here in debate preparation. That made perfect sense because it connected her to this region. But she's going to have to come back and go to the outlying counties, not to the city. Hillary Clinton made that mistake in 2016.
Walk
She only
two
went
of the
to Pittsburgh,
polls.
and she lost the state of Pennsylvania.
That would be
6
really
million
good.
votes cast, but she lost by 40,000 votes. That's all.
That's
She
a
could have gotten those
campaign
40,000
winner right
votes
there.
had she campaigned in the
Whoever
outlying
uses that one.
Pennsylvania. And I will just add that I had a conversation
Instant
with Mike
presidency.
Wadley, the chairman of the Republican National Party, yesterday, who said that when it comes to Pennsylvania, Donald Trump wins it or loses it right here in Western Pennsylvania.
I wasn't RFK allowed
That's
to
an
debate.
excellent point. And so, John, have you seen any
I
signs that the Democratic campaign,
get enough
whether it's
of
Kamala
the
Harris
polls.
or the vice presidential nominee, are going to go to any of those?
But also he
counties
dropped
we talked
out.
about, those collar counties.
And
Well, yes, they
endorsed
learned the
Donald
lesson
Trump.
of
So,
Hillary Clinton, and
whoa.
they have been out here. The vice presidential candidate, Governor Walz, was down in Fayette.
I love.
County.
I've seen a number of AI-generated images that are. It's like RFK, Trump, Elon walking, looking all hard, being like, we're here to destroy the Uniparty. And I'm like, dog, what? The third-party candidate dropped out and endorsed a Republican. What do you mean we're here to destroy the Uniparty?
A few of those votes in order to win Pennsylvania. Philadelphia is important, but let's not forget this Midwestern part of Pennsylvania. Nora?
John Delano, thank you so much for your expert political advice and
X, the
analysis.
Everything
Thank
app
you.
is truly
Coming
the
up,
place
let's
of all
talk about
time.
the economy, how the candidates compare when it comes.
Do you guys see that Trump has he's done a new line of NFTs? Trump digital trading cards, as he calls them. They're really quite something. Let me see if I can find the ad. The pitch that he did.
Sorry, honey, it's a work thing. Mine's also a work thing. I just need someone to cover my shift.
There's one from a year ago, but that's not what I'm here for. Here's the New York Post hooked me up 13 days ago.
President Donald J. Trump with some very exciting news. By popular demand, I'm doing a new series of Trump digital trading cards. You all know what they are. We've had a lot of fun with them. It's called the America First.
So, before we go on with this, I just want to... This is like so very obviously Trump Trump coming in, he doesn't fucking know what it is that he's shilling, and he did it in like one take.
First collection. 50 all new stunning digital trading cards. It's really something.
It's
These
really
cards show
something,
me
folks.
dancing and even me holding some bitcoins. Here's the best
Huh?
part. I'm doing great
Bitcoins?
things for my Trump digital card collectors. First, there's the real physical Trump cards. Purchase 15 or more of my Trump digital trading cards, and we'll mail you a beautiful physical trading card. It's really, I think, quite something.
It's quite something.
Each physical trading card has an
He says it so many
authentic piece of my
times.
Suit that I wore for the presidential debate, and people are calling it the knockout suit. I don't know about that, but that's what they're calling it.
I don't know about that. It's
we'll
what
put
it's
up
what they're
the
calling it.
knockout suit, and you're going to get a piece of it, and we'll be randomly autographing 5 of them, a true collector's item. This is something
You could get
to
some of the
give your
fabric from
family,
his suit.
your kids, your grandchildren. Number 2 is to purchase
2.
75 of my Trump digital trading cards, and you will also be invited to join me for
Look at it.
a
Look at the image. Look at the
dinner
image. Look at the
my
picture.
beautiful country club in Jupiter, Florida. We really have tremendous dinners with my collectors. Have a lot of fun together. We're going to have a good time. I'm keeping my Trump digital trading cards at the same price of $99 each. We've done that
Yo,
right from the beginning.
you get a piece of the
So go
suit
to
if you
collect
spend
Trump
$75, $100 on this bullshit.
You just need an email address and a credit card or crypto. You know, they call me
Oh, look
the
at it.
crypto
Oh, it's...
president. I don't know if that's true or not, but a lot of people
They call him
saying
the
that, so don't
crypto
miss out.
president. Look at it. It's so ugly.
TrumpCards.com. Go right now and
Hooray!
collect your piece of American history. Let's have fun together and enjoy my Trump cards. We're going to have a lot of fun. We'll be talking about it for a long time. Thank you very much. Have a good time.
Oh, look at it. It's so hideous. Fight, fight, fight. Collect Trump cards. Yeah, it's really quite something.
Your morning routine just got better.
I agree that it is really quite something.
Are you confident that there will be a peaceful transfer of power?
President Biden's first interview since his historic announcement on CBS Sunday morning.
I don't understand this Western movie sounding ass trumpet. At 96, thanks for the tier 1. Alerts are broken today. Unlucky.
I lift up other voices. You can't write a better script.
We'll see you 7 o'clock sharp.
Beep, 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 boop. New York!
One of the primary drivers on the minds of voters, the economy. In fact, a CBS News poll earlier this summer shows it's the #1 issue for voters between 18 and 29, as well as those 30 and older. Senior business and tech correspondent Jolene Kent joins us now with the breakdown of how these two tickets
Major
compare when it
factors,
comes to the pocketbook
the
issues.
economy.
Jolene, so good to have
Also
you
known
here.
as
Let's
I
first
want
talk
more
about
money.
grocery prices.
That's right, Nora. Recently, food costs at home have actually been growing more slowly. We like to see that. But the reason why many people continue to struggle with grocery carts is that over the past 4 years, grocery prices are up over 20%. You are paying a lot more today than you were 4 years ago. For example, on a $150 grocery bill in 2020, that same cart is now $182. That's $32 more at the checkout. And wages, of course, do outpace
Trump says we're going to make them pay for it.
But this reality is still so painful. Now, Vice President Harris has said she will pass the first ever federal ban on price gouging food that would bring new penalties for companies that exploit crises and break the rules. But there have been few details beyond how this would be implemented. Now, former President
There probably
Trump
just
has
needs to be
proposed
stricter
20% tariffs on imported goods, which would
stricter enforcement on certain food industries getting monopolized.
Items. Economists are telling us they estimate tariff proposals would cost the typical middle-income household at least $1,700 more a year, Nora.
I know, and Kamala Harris uses an even bigger number than that. Surely she will bring that up tonight. Let's talk about tax policy. How do the two compare when it comes to cuts and increases?
Yeah, this, of course, will vary depending on your income level. So let's look at some example salaries here. A household earning $48,000 thereabouts a year. Under Trump, you'd get $870 more income on average come 2026. Under Harris, you would earn $2,260 more. Now, if your household earns $138,000, about that a year, under former President Trump, you would get $3,970 more income.
That's
on average
crazy.
Come 2026, under Harris, you'd get about $2,800.
Stop being a broke bitch and vote for Donald Trump.
Money Watch team, economists say that under Trump,
That's my
everyone's
stance.
going to get a tax cut, but the biggest winners
What,
are
you
going
you
to
don't
be
got money?
higher income earners. Now, under Vice President Harris, the biggest benefits go to the lower income earners, and she would increase taxes on the highest brackets, Nora.
All right, Jolene Kent, thank you so much. Want to bring back in our policy. And Ed O'Keefe, we have seen Vice President Kamala Harris begin to roll
We start
out some
in
more
4 minutes,
policy
everybody.
proposals aimed
Get
at
excited.
many of these
Yippee.
voters she's trying to court.
Yeah, I mean, it was things like last week suggesting that she
I'm in
would try
college.
to
I don't have
modify
money. Well, yeah.
tax breaks for
Get
new
money
businesses
and
up
then
to
vote for Donald
$50,000
Trump.
from $5,000.
You should probably go ahead and vote for him ahead of time, just so that way, once you are a millionaire,
There's the
you're not
debate about
getting
whether you
taxed
tax
out the
tips or
ass.
Social Security wages that both of them have waded into. Harris says she's for ending taxes on tips, so long as the sub-minimum wage is also brought up across the country, because in several states it's still at like 1990s levels. And so they understand in her campaign, at least, they've got to be talking about dollars and cents. It's those undecided voters, like the
The
guy
undecided
sitting there
voters.
in Coquitlam tonight, probably thinking about, you know, how much are groceries costing? How much could my new house cost? How much will the car payments be going forward? All of that on the minds of voters, and they understand. Look at our poll, look at everyone else's. He still has the advantage when it comes to who would better handle the economy.
Well, particularly with non-college educated white voters who are working class. And that's interesting because he has the advantage in our polling, the working class and the wealthy. Kamala Harris, the vice president, currently is pretty competitive when it comes to perceptions among the middle class that she would actually deliver for them. And
It's so awesome to me
just in the
that
past week, I
that
mentioned
people
earlier
who
the
are poor
slightest
in
policy
America
differences from Joe
constantly
Biden.
vote
It was,
against their own
raising
interests.
the corporate tax rate by slightly less.
What's the
and
deal?
Raising the capital gains tax by slightly less than a proposal by Joe Biden. It was seen as an outreach to the business community, to be perceived as less anti-business than he is.
And her top donors, for that matter. Yeah.
And her top donors. Let's check in quickly with Robert Costa. He is there at the debate site. Good evening, Robert.
Good evening, Nora. We've heard a lot about Bucks County, Pennsylvania in our
Bucks
CBS
County.
report tonight. I'm fine with that. I grew up in Bucks County, but talking to both campaigns, it's not just about suburban Philadelphia. The target audience tonight, that
Go Birds.
labor family in the industrial Midwest, in the South as well, in places like Georgia. Who's going to speak to them on immigration, on the economy, and say that not only are they the candidate of change, but the candidate of the working person in this country? And Trump believes, I'm told behind the scenes, that he can be the anti-establishment candidate like he was in 2016. So look for some of that spirit tonight from him.
It's an excellent
You
point,
cannot
Robert
be
Costa. Let's check in
the
now
former
with
president
Rita
of the
Jane,
United
who is also
States
the
and run as
Harris campaign.
anti-establishment.
How does Harris make that case?
You see Biden saying he will do 9/11? I did.
To
I hope he
make
does.
This case since she began her candidacy, and we'll have to see how she's able to distinguish herself. But we do know over the weekend, when she was asked the one thing she wants to get across during this debate, she said it's time to turn the page on divisiveness and chart a new path forward. Well, one thing we'll be watching, Nora, will these two nominees shake hands? That has not happened since debates in 2016. And so we'll see whether she'll be extending that hand first.
All right, Rita Jang, thank you
No,
so much.
there's no
Up
shot.
Next, the debate begins. Vice President Harris and former President Trump take the stage. Our coverage will continue momentarily here on CBS.
All right. Woo! Yeah, go Birds. Maybe a fist bump. Yo, maybe they dap each other up. Have we considered
A
this?
chewy pharmacy order is on the way for Summit, who loves fresh air. Like, loves fresh air. But fresh air is full of stuff. Fleas.
What's the drinking game
pathogens.
command?
So
It's
parents
pinned
use
in the
Chewy
chat.
for all her prescriptions. Fast delivery means they never miss a dose. And great prices mean more funds for more fun. For quality meds and great prices, for life with pets, there's Chewy.
A good deal shouldn't make you choose. That's why Subway just dropped
Can't
the
see
price
it.
on all their subs.
I'll post it again just for you.
Sub, any size.
Wait,
There you go.
Subway did what? 20% off any sub, any size?
Yep. For a limited time, get 20% off any foot long or 20% off any 6-inch. When
Thank you,
order
Charles
now.
Barkley.
Get 20% off your favorite sub at Subway while the deal is still on. and join MVP Rewards for even more great deals.
Ready to ride?
Do you know who you're talking to?
I'm aware regardless. Celebrate a new season of The Chi.
I vow to show up for those that need help, those that just need somebody to listen.
And enjoy even more powerful series.
Oh my God.
Is that it?
And groundbreaking movies.
You only get one life and you have to live it to the fullest.
You go for a handshake and Trump pulls his hand back and goes, "Ooh, too slow."
Black Voices. Explore the collection on Paramount Plus.
Everyone kept tallies on previous drinking. I don't think anybody's tallied it. I'll tell you right now, China gets a lot of play. Israel this time around is probably going to get a lot of play. We might see a lot of... We might call her Comrade Kamala quite a bit. Implicit and explicit racism. You drink depending on the severity of it.
Our campaign, this campaign, is a fight for the future.
And we will make America great again.
Accordion hands.
This is a CBS News special, America Decides.
CBS News,
the presidential debate,
hosted by ABC.
Now reporting, Norah O'Donnell.
Good evening. We are just moments away from one of the most anticipated events of this presidential campaign. Tonight, Vice President Kamala Harris
How
and
long is it?
former
90
President
minutes.
Donald Trump face off in their first and potentially only debate. Both will be looking to share their visions for the future of the country. Our CBS News team, the best political minds in the business, will be back after the debate for analysis.
The best in the business? I don't know about
Now we
that.
head to Philadelphia
Go
for the
Birds.
presidential debate, which tonight will be hosted by ABC. Let's listen.
David Muir and Lindsay Davis.
All right.
I'm David Muir, and thank you for joining us for tonight's ABC News presidential debate. We want to welcome viewers watching on ABC and around the world tonight. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Donald Trump are just moments away from taking the stage in this unprecedented race for president.
And I'm Lindsay Davis. Tonight's meeting could be the most consequential event of their campaigns, with Election Day now less than 2 months away. For Vice President Kamala Harris, this is her first debate since President Biden withdrew from the race on July 21st. Of course, that decision followed his debate against President Donald Trump in June. Since then, this race has taken on an entirely new dynamic.
And that brings us to the rules of tonight's debate. 90 minutes with 2 commercial breaks. No topics or questions have been shared with the campaigns. The candidates will have 2 minutes to answer questions.
Turn it up a
and
bit.
This is the clock. That's what they'll be seeing. 2 minutes for rebuttals and 1 minute for follow-ups, clarifications, or responses. Their microphones will only be turned on when it's their turn to speak. No pre-written notes allowed. There is no audience here tonight in this hall at the National Constitution Center. This is an intimate setting for 2 candidates who have never met.
The music is mine, by the way.
Won the coin toss and chose to deliver the final closing statement of the evening. Vice President Harris selected the podium to the right.
So let's now welcome the candidates to the stage. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Donald Trump.
I always play classical during these. It adds to the hilarity.
Kamala Harris. Let's have a good debate.
I'm Kamala Harris.
Welcome to you both. It's wonderful to have
You're really
you tonight.
approached.
Have you both here tonight.
Good evening. We are looking forward to a spirited
Chaz
and
Tequila.
thoughtful debate.
So let's get started. I want to begin tonight with the issue that voters repeatedly say is their number one issue, and that is the economy and the cost of living in this country. Vice President Harris, you and President Trump were elected 4 years ago, and your opponent on the stage here tonight often asks his supporters, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? When it comes to the economy, do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago?
Dog, what was happening 4 years
I
ago?
was raised as a middle-class kid, and I am actually the only person on this stage who has a plan.
Can anybody
that
think
is
of what
about
was going
lifting
on
up the
in
middle class
September
and
of
working people
2020?
America. I believe in the ambition, the aspirations, the dreams of the American people. And that is why I imagine and have actually a plan to build what I call an opportunity economy.
Turn the debate
'Cause
up
here's the thing.
even more.
We know that we have a shortage of homes and housing, and the cost of housing is too expensive for far too many people. We know that young families need support to raise their children, and I intend on extending a tax cut for those families of $6,000, which is the largest child tax credit that we have given in a long time so that those young families can afford to buy a crib, buy a car seat, buy clothes for their children. My passion, one of them, is small businesses. My mother raised my sister and me, but there was a woman who helped raise us. We call her our second mother. She was a small business owner.
That's a hilarious spelling of
love our
Anthony
small
Fauci.
businesses. My plan is to give a $50,000 tax deduction to start up small businesses, knowing they are part of the backbone of America's economy. My opponent, on the other hand, his plan is to do what he has done before, which is to provide a tax cut for billionaires and big corporations, which will result in $5 trillion to America's deficit. My opponent has a plan that I call the Trump's sales tax, which would be a 20% tax on everyday goods that you rely on to get through the month. Economists have said that Trump sales tax would actually result for middle-class families in about $4,000 more a year because of his policies and his ideas about what should be the backs of middle-class people paying for tax cuts for billionaires.
President Trump, I'll give you 2 minutes.
First of all, I have no sales tax. That's an incorrect statement. She knows that. We're doing tariffs on other countries. Other countries are going to finally, after 75 years, pay us back for all that we've done for the world. And
they owe us.
Tariff will be substantial
for all of the imperialism.
Billions and billions of
no,
dollars.
No sales tax? Are we getting rid of sales tax?
They never took the tariff off because it was so much money they can't. It would totally destroy everything that they've set out to do. They're taking in billions of dollars from China and other places. They've left the tariffs on. When I had it, I had tariffs, and yet I had no inflation. Look, we've had a terrible economy because inflation which is really known as a country buster. It breaks up countries. We have inflation like very few people have ever seen before.
Drink for China.
Probably the worst in our nation's history. We were at 21%, but that's being generous because many things are 50, 60, 70, and 80% higher than they were just a few years ago. This has been a
live
disaster
Kamala
for
reaction.
people, for the middle class, but for every class. On top of that, we have millions of people pouring into our country from prisons and jails, from mental institutions and insane
implicit
asylums.
racism, one drink.
And they're coming in and they're taking jobs that are occupied right now by African Americans.
Black jobs. We're doubling down on black jobs.
Unions are going to be affected very soon. And you see what's happening. You see what's happening with
Can't believe we're
towns
doubling
throughout
down.
the United States. You look at Springfield, Ohio. You look at Aurora in Colorado. They are taking over the towns. They're taking over buildings. They're going in violently. These are the people.
They're on a murderous
led into our
rampage.
country, and they're destroying our country. They're dangerous. They're at the highest level of criminality, and we have to get them out. We have to get them out fast. I created one of the greatest economies in the history of our country. I'll do it again and even
Citation
better.
needed.
We are going to get to immigration and border security during this debate, but I would like to let Vice President Harris respond on the economy here.
Well,
Trump
I would love to.
and the
Let's
Republican
talk
campaign,
about what
they
Donald
relate
Trump left us.
everything
Donald
to immigration.
Trump left us the worst
Everything gets related to
unemployment since the
immigration,
Great
no matter what
Depression.
issue we're talking
Donald
about.
Trump left us the worst public health epidemic in a century. Donald Trump left us the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War. And what we have done is clean up Donald Trump's mess.
They are taking our
And what I
gerbs.
intend to do is build on what we know are the aspirations and the hopes of the American people. But I'm going to tell you all in this debate tonight, you're going to hear from the same old tired playbook.
True.
A bunch of lies, grievances, and name calling. What you're going to hear tonight is a detailed and dangerous plan called Project 2025 that the former president intends on implementing if he were elected again. I believe very strongly that the American people want a president who understands the importance of bringing us together, knowing we have so much more in common than what separates us, and I pledge to you to be a president for all Americans.
President Trump will give you a minute here to respond.
Number one, I have nothing to do, as you know, and as she knows better than anyone, I have nothing to do with Project 2025. That's out there. I haven't read it. I don't want to read it. Purposely,
Okay,
I'm not going to
buddy.
read it. This was a group of people that got together. They came up with some ideas. I guess some good, some bad.
I just
but
happened
it
to
makes no difference. I have nothing to do.
agree with
Everybody knows
95%
I'm an
of the
open book.
proposals.
Everybody knows what I'm going to do. Cut
Right,
taxes very
253
substantially
cheers.
and create a great
X100.
economy like I did before. we had the greatest economy.
Bold-faced
we got hit
lie.
with a pandemic. And
True.
the pandemic was not since 1917, where 100 million people died, has there been anything like it. We did a phenomenal job with the pandemic.
How many?
We
Oh,
handed them
okay.
over a country where the economy and where the stock market was higher than it was before the pandemic came in. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. We made ventilators for the
awesome.
entire world. We got gowns, we got masks, we did things that nobody thought possible. And people give me credit for rebuilding the military. They give me credit for a lot of things, but not enough credit for the great job we did with the pandemic.
Great
But
job.
The only jobs they got were
A+.
bounce back jobs. These were jobs bounce back, and it bounced back, and it went to their benefit. But I was the one that created them. They know it, and so does everybody else.
Just a little 9/11 every single day.
So Donald Trump has no plan for you. And when you look at his economic plan, it's all about tax breaks for the richest people. I am offering what I describe as an opportunity economy, and the best economists in our country, if not the world, have reviewed our relative plans for the future of America. What Goldman Sachs has said is that Donald Trump's plan would make the economy worse. Mine would strengthen the economy. What the Wharton School has said is Donald Trump's plan would actually explode the deficit. 16 Nobel laureates have described his economic plan as something that would increase inflation and by the middle of next year would invite a recession. You just have to look at where we are and where we stand on the issues. And I'd invite you to know that Donald Trump actually has no plan for you because he is more interested in defending himself than he is in looking out for you.
That's just a soundbite. They gave her that to say. Look, I went to the Wharton School of Finance, and many of those professors, the top professors,
That's a drink.
think my plan is a brilliant plan.
Talking
It's
while
a great
microphone's
plan.
muted.
It's a plan that's going to bring up our worth, our value as a country. It's going to make people want to be able to go and work and create jobs and create a lot of good, solid money for our country. Just
Good
to
jobs,
finish
great
off,
jobs, solid money
she
jobs.
doesn't have a plan. She copied Biden's plan, and it's like 4 sentences, like run, spot, run. 4 sentences that are just, oh, we'll try and lower taxes. She doesn't have a plan. Take a look at her plan. She doesn't have a plan.
Mr. President, I do want to drill down on something you both brought up. The Vice President brought up your tariffs. You responded, and let's drill down on this because your plan is what she calls is essentially a national sales tax. Your proposal calls for tariffs, as you pointed out here, on foreign imports across the board. You recently said that you might double your plan, imposing tariffs up to 20% on goods coming into this country. As you know, many
100%
economists say
tariff.
that with tariffs at that level, costs are then passed on to the consumer. Vice President Harris has argued it'll mean higher prices on gas, food, clothing, medication, arguing it costs the typical family nearly $4,000 a year. Do you believe Americans can afford higher prices because of tariffs?
They're not going to have higher prices.
No, that's not
What's
how it
gonna
works.
happen, who's going
You're
to have
wrong.
higher prices is China and
China.
all of the countries that have been ripping us off for years. I was the only president ever. China was paying us hundreds of billions
China.
of dollars, and so were other countries. And, you know, if she doesn't like them, they should have gone out and they should have immediately cut the tariffs. But those tariffs are there 3.5 years now under their administration. We are going to take in billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars. I had no inflation, virtually no inflation. They had the highest inflation perhaps in the history of our country because I've never seen a worse period of time. People can't go out and buy cereal or bacon or eggs or anything else.
You guys remember the fucking press conference where he was surrounded by groceries?
Absolutely dying with what they've done. They've
2 weeks
destroyed
ago?
the economy. And all you have to do is look at a poll. The polls say 80 and 85 and even 90% that the Trump economy was great, that their economy was terrible.
Vice President Harris, I do want to ask for your response, and you heard what the president said there, because the Biden administration did keep a number of the Trump tariffs in place. So how do you respond?
Well, let's be clear that the Trump administration resulted in a trade deficit, one of the highest we've ever seen in the history of America. He invited trade wars. You want to talk about his deal with China? What he ended up doing is under Donald Trump's presidency, he ended up selling
Convinced Trump is
American
AI, he
chips
regurgitates the same
to
thing over and
China
over when it's not
to
true.
help them
I don't think that's
improve
what
and
AI
modernize their
means.
military, basically sold us out when a policy about China should be
he does regurgitate the same thing over and over again.
Wins the competition
I don't think
for
that
the 21st
makes him AI.
century, which means focusing on the details of what that requires, focusing on relationships with our allies, focusing on investing in American-based technology so that we win the race on AI, on quantum computing, focusing on what we need to do to support America's workforce so that we don't end up having on the short end of the stick in terms of workers' rights. But what Donald Trump did, let's talk about this, with COVID, is he actually thanked President Xi for what he did during COVID. Look at his tweet. Thank you, President Xi, exclamation point, when we know that Xi was responsible for lacking and not giving us transparency about the origins of COVID.
President Trump, I'll let you respond.
First of all, they bought their chips from Taiwan. We hardly make chips anymore because of philosophies like
if only we made some sort of
like they have.
If only we made some sort of act about chips to make chips in America, Chips Act.
Out the window. She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat. She's gone to my philosophy. But if she ever got elected, she'd change it, and it will be the end of our country. She's a Marxist. Everybody knows she's a Marxist. Her father's a Marxist professor in economics, and he taught her well. But when you look at what she's done to our country, and when you look at these millions and millions of people that are pouring into our country monthly, where it's, I believe, 21 million people, not the 15 that people say, and I think it's a lot higher than the 21. That's bigger than New York State pouring in. And just look at what they're doing to our country.
Look what they're doing to our country.
These people coming in are criminals. And that's bad for our economy, too. You know, you mentioned
it's
before
immigration. It's always immigration.
Later. Well, bad immigration is the worst thing that can happen to our economy. They have, and she has, destroyed our country with policy that's insane. Almost policy that you'd say they have to hate our country.
President Trump, thank you.
So bad.
I want to turn to the issue of abortion. President Trump, you've often touted that you were able to kill Roe v. Wade. Last year, you said that you were proud to be the most pro-life president in American history. Then last month,
my favorite thing about him talking about the Biden era inflation is that it's literally fucking caused by Trump policy.
You surprised many with regard to your 6-week abortion ban because you initially had said that it was too short. And you said, quote, I'm going to be voting that we need more than 6 weeks. But then the very next day, you reversed course and said you would vote to support the 6-week ban. Vice President Harris says that women shouldn't trust you on the issue of abortion because you've changed your position so many times. Therefore, why should they trust you?
Well, the reason I'm doing that vote is because the plan is, as you know, the vote is, they have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, and you can look at the governor of
They're
West
killing
Virginia,
3-year-olds. They're so crazy on abortion.
Not the current governor is doing an excellent job. But the governor before, he said the baby will be born and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby. And that's why I did that, because that predominates, because they're radical. The Democrats are radical in that. And her vice presidential pick, which I think is a horrible pick, by the way, for our country, because he is really out of it. But her vice presidential pick says abortion in the 9th month is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth. It's execution, no longer abortion, because the baby is born.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay. And that's not okay with me.
If you just want to kill your 2-year-old, they're all for it.
52 years they've been trying to get Roe v. Wade into the states. And through the genius and heart and strength of 6 Supreme Court justices,
they're geniuses.
We were able to do that. Now, I believe in the exceptions.
It was so genius whenever Ruth Bader Ginsburg died.
I believe strongly in it. Ronald Reagan did also. 85% of Republicans do. Exceptions. Very important. But we were able to get it, and now states are voting on it. And for the first time, you're going to see, look, this is an issue that's torn our country apart for 52 years. Every legal scholar, every Democrat, every Republican, liberal, conservative, they all wanted this issue to be brought back to the states where the people could vote. And that's what happened. And now, Ohio, The vote was
Right.
somewhat
Has he
liberal.
been? He's been speaking for more than 2 minutes
the vote was
now.
somewhat liberal, much more liberal than people would have thought. But each individual state is voting. It's the vote of the people now. It's not tied up in the federal government. I did a great service in doing it. It took courage to do it. And the Supreme Court had great courage in doing it. And I give tremendous credit to those 6 justices.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born.
Fact checked by
President,
moderators. Woo!
Well, as I said,
Woo! Fact checked by the moderators. Let's go.
Surprising fact. Let's understand how we got here. Donald Trump hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. And they did exactly as he intended. And now in over 20 states, there are Trump abortion bans, which make it criminal for a doctor or nurse to provide health care in one
My
state.
drink's been watered down by my ice melting. I must pour more rum.
Trump abortion bans that make no exception even for rape and incest, which understand what that means. A survivor of a crime of violation to their body does not have the right to make a decision about what happens
Why
to their
she
body
talk like
next.
that?
That is immoral. And
I think
not
Kamala
have to
Harris speaks pretty
abandon
normally.
their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government, and Donald Trump certainly, should not be telling a woman what to do with her body. I have talked with women around our country. You want to talk about this is what people wanted? Pregnant women who want to carry a pregnancy to term, suffering from a miscarriage, being denied care in an emergency room because the healthcare providers are afraid they
sounds
might
like
go
Elmo.
to jail, and she's bleeding out in a
I don't think
car
you know
in
what
a
Elmo
parking
sounds
lot.
like, my friend.
She didn't want that. Her husband didn't want that. A 12 or 13-year-old survivor of incest being forced to carry a pregnancy to term? They don't want that. And I pledge to you, when Congress passes a bill to put back in place the protections of Roe v. Wade, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. But understand, if Donald Trump were to be reelected, he will sign a national abortion ban. Understand, in his Project 2025, there would be a national abortion, a monitor that would be monitoring your pregnancies, your miscarriages. I think the American people believe
Cheddar, who was
that
raised by
certain
apes in the
freedoms,
jungle.
in particular the freedom to make decisions about one's own body, should not be made by the government.
Thank you, Vice President Harris.
Well, there she goes again. It's a lie. I'm not signing a ban, and there's no reason to sign a ban because
Let the
we've
states
gotten
handle it,
what
folks.
everybody
It's
wanted.
states' rights.
Democrats, Republicans, and everybody else, and every legal scholar wanted it to be brought back into the states, and the states are voting. And it may take a little time, but for 52 years, this issue has torn our country apart, and they've wanted it back in the states. And I did something that nobody thought was possible. The states are now voting. What she says is an absolute lie. And as far as the abortion ban, no, I'm not in favor of abortion ban, but it doesn't matter because this issue has now been taken over by the states.
Would you veto a national abortion ban if it came
Well, I
to your
won't
desk?
have to because, again, two things.
That-
Number one, she
answer
said
the
she'll
question,
go back
please.
to Congress. She'll never get the vote. It's impossible for her to get the vote, especially now with the 50-50, and essentially 50-50 in both Senate and the House. She's not going to get the vote. She can't get the vote. She won't even come close to it. So it's just talk. You know what it reminds me of? When they said they're going to get student loans terminated, and it ended up being a total catastrophe. The student loans,
Did it?
and then her, I think probably her boss, if you call him a boss, he spends all his time on the beach. But look, her boss went out and said, we'll do it again. We'll do it a different way. And he went out, got rejected again by the Supreme Court. So all these students got taunted with this whole thing about this whole idea.
This shit
And
literally
how
went through.
unfair that would
Well,
have been part of the reason
you
they
should have gotten
lost
it over the finish
to
line.
the millions and millions of people that had to pay off their student loans. They didn't get it for free. But they were saying it's the same way that they talked about that they talk about abortion.
But if I could just get a yes or no, because your running mate, J.D. Vance, has said that you would veto it if it did come to your desk.
Well, I didn't discuss it with J.D. In all fairness, J.D. And I don't mind if he has a certain view, but I think he was speaking for me, but I really didn't. Look, we don't have to discuss it because she'd never be able to get it, just like she couldn't get student loans. They couldn't get student loans. They didn't even come close to getting student loans. They taunted young people and a lot of other people that had loans.
I mean,
they can never get this approved. So
there
it
was
doesn't matter what she says about
there
going
was
to
an
Congress.
amount that got
Wonderful. Let's go to
approved,
Congress, do
a
it.
pretty low
But
amount,
the
but
fact
an
is that
amount.
for years they wanted to get it out of Congress and out of the federal government.
But also
And
he's
we
like,
did something that everybody
he's like,
said
it's
couldn't be
pathetic
done.
that they
And
weren't
now
able to do
you
it.
have a vote of the people on
As though it's like,
Vice
I
President
would do
Harris, I'll give better. you your time to respond, but I
That's
do want to
kind of his
ask,
tone.
would
It's
you
like they
support
couldn't even
any
get
restrictions
student
on a
loans over
woman's
the
right to
finish
an
line.
abortion?
I
Pathetic.
absolutely support
If it were me,
reinstating the
it would be
protections
free
of Roe v.
college.
Wade. And as
They suck
you
so bad at being
rightly
liberals, I'll be a liberal
mentioned,
better than they
nowhere
can
in
ever
America
possibly imagine.
is a woman carrying a pregnancy to term and asking for an abortion. That is not happening. It's insulting to the women of America. And understand what has been happening under Donald Trump's abortion bans. Couples who pray and dream of having a family are being denied IVF treatments. What is happening in our country? Working people, working women who are working 1 or 2 jobs, who can barely afford childcare as it is, have to travel to another state to get on a plane sitting next to strangers to go and get the health care she needs. Barely can afford to do it, and what you are putting her through is unconscionable. And the people of America have not, the majority of Americans believe in a woman's right to make decisions
Kamala
about
is putting
her own
on
body.
the drama class.
And that is why in
empathy
every
voice.
state where this issue has been on the ballot, in red and blue states both, the people of America have voted for freedom.
Not faulting her for doing
Have
so,
to
but
respond.
she is
Another lie.
dialing up
It's
the
another
emotion
lie.
here.
I have been a leader on IVF, which is fertilization. The IVF, I have been a leader. In fact, when they got a very negative decision on IVF from the Alabama courts, I saw the people of Alabama and the legislature 2 days later voted it in. I've been a leader on it. They know that, and everybody else knows it. I have been a leader on
Drama to move
fertilization.
people. She's a
IVF.
part of the problem.
And the other thing,
But yeah, it's the point
you
is
should
to
ask,
move people. It's like it's not
will
like
she
moving
allow
people's
abortion
bad.
in the 8th month, 9th month, 7th month.
Just trying to put
Okay,
blame
would
on
you
the
do
other
that?
side is accurate
Why don't
because
you
the
ask
other
why
side
don't
is to
you
blame.
answer the question, would you
Because
veto?
under Roe v.
Answer
Wade,
the question, would you veto?
you could do abortions in the 7th month, the 8th month, the 9th
That's
month,
not true.
and probably after birth. Just look at the governor, former governor of Virginia. The governor of Virginia said, we put the baby aside and then we determine what we want to do with the baby.
President Trump, thank you.
We're going to turn now to immigration and
Wrong.
border security. We know it's an issue that's important to Republicans, Democrats,
Probably
voters
after birth.
across the board in
They're
this
gonna
country.
abort you after
Vice
you
President
graduate from
Harris,
high school.
You were tasked by President Biden with getting to the root causes of migration from Central America. We know that illegal border crossings reached a record high in the Biden administration. This past June, President Biden imposed
Don't
tough
believe
new
in
asylum
abortion?
restrictions. We know
Personally,
the
I think
numbers
it's
since
fake.
then
I
have
don't
dropped
believe in it
significantly.
either.
But my question to you tonight is, why did the administration wait until 6 months before the election to act? And would you have done anything differently from President Biden on this?
So I'm the only person on this stage who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings. And let me say that the United States Congress, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Senate, came up with a border security bill which I supported. And that bill would have put 1,500 more border agents on the border to help those folks who are working there right now overtime, trying to do their job. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States. I know there are so many families watching tonight who have been personally affected by the surge of fentanyl in our country. That bill would have put more resources to allow us to prosecute transnational criminal organizations for trafficking in guns, drugs, and human beings. But you know what happened to that bill? Donald Trump got on the phone, called up some folks in Congress and said, kill the bill. And you know why? Because he'd prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And understand, this comes at a time where the people of our country actually need a leader who engages in solutions, who actually addresses the problems at hand. But what we have in the former president is someone who would prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And I'll tell you something, he's going to talk about immigration a lot tonight, even when it's not the subject that is being raised. And I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter,
Hannibal Lecter
People talk
mentioned.
about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom. And I will tell you, the one thing you will not hear him talk about is you. You will not hear him talk about your needs, your dreams, and your desires. And I'll tell you, I believe you deserve a president who actually puts you first, and I pledge to you that I will.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, on that point, I want to get your response.
Well, I would like to respond.
Let me just ask, though, why did you try to kill that bill, and successfully so? That would have put thousands of additional agents and officers on the border.
First, let me respond as to the rallies. She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go. And the people
Source, I made it the fuck up.
And paying them to be
Bold-faced lie.
And then showing them in a different light. So she can't talk about that. People don't leave my rallies. We have the biggest rallies, the most incredible rallies in the history of politics. That's because people want to take their country back. Our country is being lost. We're a failing nation. And it happened 3.5 years ago. And what's going on here, you're going to end up in World War III, just to go into another subject, what they have done to our country by allowing these millions and millions of people to come into our country.
Coming in by
and
the
look at
billions,
what's happening
folks.
to the towns all over the United States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk. It's not going to be Aurora or Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats.
We said it.
They're eating.
Yep.
They're
All right.
eating the pets.
Drink
of the
for
people
explicit
that live
racism,
there.
folks.
And this is what's happening in our country, and it's a shame. As far as rallies are concerned, as far as the reason they go is they like what I say. They want to bring our country back. They want to make America great
Folks,
again. Very
immigrants are
simple
literally
phrase, make
stealing
America
your
great again.
pets from your
She's
backyard
destroying
and
this
eating
country.
them.
And if she becomes president, this country doesn't have a chance of success. Not only success, we'll end up being Venezuela on steroids.
I just want to clarify here.
We're gonna be
Brigham
Venezuela on
Springfield,
steroids,
Ohio,
folks.
And ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by
Fact checked
individuals
by moderators
within the
again.
immigrant community.
Well,
All
I've
this-
seen people on television.
Let me just say here, this is
The people on television say my dog was taken and used
What-
for
what-
food.
I saw a
maybe he
Facebook
said that,
post.
and maybe that's a good thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from
but
television.
The people
I'm
on
taking it from
television
the city
saying
manager.
the dog was
Trump
eaten
said,
by
my TV,
the
I saw
people
it on
that went
TV.
there.
Come on.
Again, the Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice President
find
Harris, I'll let
Oh,
you respond to the rest
my
of what you've heard.
goodness.
You talk about extreme. You know,
Me too, Kamala.
This is, I think, one of the reasons why in this election, I actually
Oh my
have
God,
the
he said, I saw it on
endorsement
TV. There's
of
no way.
200 Republicans who have formerly worked with President Bush, Mitt Romney, and John McCain,
Oh, man.
including the endorsement of former Vice President Dick Cheney and Congress member Liz Cheney. And if you want to really know the inside track on who the former president is, if he didn't make it clear already, just ask people who have worked with him. His former chief of staff, a 4-star general, has said he has contempt for the Constitution of the United States. His former national security advisor has said he is dangerous and unfit. His former Secretary of Defense has said the nation, the republic, would never survive another Trump term. And when we listen to this kind of rhetoric, when the issues that affect the American people are not being addressed, I think the choice is clear in this election.
President Trump, I'll give you a quick minute to respond here.
A quick minute.
Thank you, because I hear that. See, I'm a different kind of a person. I fired most of those people. Not so graciously. They did bad things or a bad job. I fired them. They never fired one person. They didn't fire anybody having to do with Afghanistan and the Taliban and the 13 people who's
Trump bragging
were just
about
killed
firing
viciously and
like a
violently
record
killed.
number
And
of
I got to know the
cabinet
parents
members.
and the family. They didn't fire. They should have fired all those
Like
generals,
that's a-
all those top
like that's a-
people,
a
because
point
that was
of-
one of the most
of pride.
incompetently handled situations anybody has ever seen. So when somebody does a bad job, I fire him. And you take a guy like Esper. He was no good. I fired him. So he writes a book. Another one writes a book. Because with me, they can write books. With nobody else can they. But they have done such a poor job.
I'm so
and
cool and
never
awesome. They write
fire
books about
anybody.
me.
Look at the economy. Look at the inflation. They didn't fire any of their economists. They have the same people. That's a good way not to have books written about you. But just to finish, I got more votes than any Republican in history by far. In fact,
but
I got more votes than any president, sitting president.
The other guy got more votes, buddy. Why does he? I don't know why he brags about this. He says, "I got more the most votes as any sitting president ever." The other guy literally got more votes.
President Trump, you call this the largest domestic deportation operation in the history of our country. You say you would use the National Guard. You say if things get out of control, you'd have no problem using the U.S. military.
Yes.
You also said you would use local police. How would you deport 11 million undocumented immigrants? I know you believe that number is much higher. Take us through this. What does this look like? Will authorities be going door to door in this country?
Yeah, it is much higher because of them. They allowed criminals, many millions
They're
of
not
criminals.
sending their best.
They allowed terrorists. They allowed common street criminals. They allowed people to come in, drug dealers, to come into our country, and they're now in the United States.
I'll call this implicit
and told
racism.
By their countries, like Venezuela, don't ever come back or we're going to kill you. Do you know that crime in Venezuela and crime in countries all over the world is way down? You know why? Because they've taken their criminals off the street and they've given them to her to put into our country. And this will be one of the greatest mistakes in history for them to allow. And I think they probably did it because they think they're going to get votes. But it's not worth it because they're destroying the fabric of our country by what they've done. There's never
crime
been
everywhere
anything
else
done
is
like
down
this
because
at
the
all.
criminals
They
are being
destroyed
sent
the fabric
here.
of our country. Millions of people let in, and all over the world, crime is down all over the world except here. Crime here is up and through the roof.
I'm pretty sure
despite their
that's not
fraudulent
true.
statements that they
Also,
made.
I'm pretty sure
in this
crime
country
here is also
through the roof.
down.
And we have a new form of crime. It's called migrant crime, and it's happening at levels that nobody thought possible.
President Trump, as you know, the FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country.
Whoa, we're fact-checking him again.
Defrauding statements. They didn't include the worst cities. They didn't include the cities with the worst crime. It was a fraud. Just like their number of 818,000 jobs that they said they created turned out to be a fraud.
President Trump, thank you. I'll let you.
Who drinks? We're fact-checking Trump's blatant lies. That's crazy. CNN didn't have the balls.
For national security crimes, economic crimes, election interference, has been found liable for sexual assault, and his next big court appearance is in November at his own criminal sentencing. And let's be clear, where each person stands
Trump goes,
on the issue of what is important about respect for the rule of law and respect for law enforcement. The former vice president called for defunding federal law enforcement, 45,000 agents, get this, on the day after he was arraigned on 34 felony counts. So let's talk about what is important in this race. It is important that we move forward, that we turn the page on this same old tired rhetoric and address the needs of the American people, address what we need to do about the housing shortage, which I have a plan for, address what we must do to support our small businesses, address bringing down the price of groceries. But frankly, the American people are exhausted with this same old tired playbook.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
Excuse me. Every one of those cases was started by them against their political opponent, and I'm winning most of them, and I will win the rest on appeal. And you saw that
for
with the
being
decision that came
so
down
harsh
just
on
recently from the
criminals, he
Supreme
should
Court.
try not
I'm
also
winning
being
most
a
of them.
criminal.
But those are cases. It's called weaponization. Never happened in this country. They weaponized the Justice Department. Every one of those cases was involved with the DOJ, from Atlanta and Fani Willis to the Attorney General of New York and the DA in New York. Every one of those cases. And then they say, oh, he's a criminal. They're the ones that made them go after me. By the way, Joe Biden,
if they just wouldn't have
was found
prosecuted me, I wouldn't be a
essentially
criminal.
guilty on the documents case. And what happened in my documents case? They said, oh, that's the toughest of them all. A complete and total victory. 2 months ago, it was thrown out. It's weaponization, and they used it, and it's never happened in this country. They used it
This is a
to try
drink
and
for
win an election. They're fake
Trump
cases.
complaining about
a really quick response here, Vice
about his
President
criminal
Harris,
court
on this notion of weaponization of the Justice Department.
Well, let's talk about extreme and understand the context in which this election in 2024 is taking place.
Tell me about
The
context,
United States Supreme
Kamala.
Court recently ruled that the former president would essentially be immune from any misconduct if he were to enter the White House again. Understand, this is someone who has openly said he would terminate, I'm quoting, terminate the Constitution of the United States, that he would weaponize the Department of Justice against his political enemies.
Dude, he
Someone who has
campaigned on locking her up in
expressed
16, bro.
disdain for members of our military.
What fucking goes around
what
comes
it would
around,
mean if
man.
Donald Trump were back in the White House with no guardrails, because certainly we know now the court won't stop him. We know J.D. Vance is not going to stop him. It's up to the American people.
Vice President
stop
Harris,
him.
thank you. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president.
Oh,
This is the one
that's
that
a drink.
weaponized, not me.
Bird.
She weaponized.
Talking when the mic is
probably
muted.
Took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me. They talk about
His ear looks fine, by the way.
democracy. I'm a threat to democracy. They're the threat to democracy.
It actually
with the fake Russia,
barely
Russia,
got him.
Russia
It's so crazy.
investigation That went nowhere.
We have a lot to get to. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president, you said
You
wanted
can't
to
even
ban
tell.
fracking. Now
Like,
you
there's
don't.
like no
You wanted
visible
mandatory
scarring.
Government buyback programs for assault weapons. Now your campaign says you don't. You supported
Republican shooter,
decriminalizing
yeah.
border crossings. Now you're taking a harder line. I know you say that your values have not changed. So then why have so many of your policy
I'm really
positions
pounding the
changed?
drinks
So
this time
my
around.
values have not changed, and I'm
I have
gonna
to stand up and get
discuss
more.
at least every point that you've made. But in particular, let's talk about fracking, because we're here in Pennsylvania.
Fracking?
I made that very clear in 2020. I will not ban fracking.
Fracking's
I have not
awesome
banned
because
fracking as Vice
it's
President of the United
unelectable if I
States,
say
and in
that it's
fact,
bad.
I was the tie-breaking vote on the Inflation Reduction Act, which opened new leases for fracking. My position is that we have got to invest in diverse sources of energy so we reduce our reliance on foreign oil. We have had the largest increase in domestic oil production in history because of an approach that recognizes
We gotta
that we
drill,
cannot
baby,
over-rely
drill.
on
Those
foreign oil.
fucking liberals
As
that
it
hate
relates to my
oil.
values, let me tell you, I grew up a middle-class
And we
kid
have
raised by
an
a
infinite
hardworking
amount of
mother
it under our feet that
who
we're choosing
worked and
not
saved
to
and was able to buy our first home when I was a teenager.
not to
The
utilize.
values I bring to the importance of home ownership, knowing not everybody got handed $400 million on a silver platter and then filed
can
bankruptcy
frack
6
forever.
times, is a value that I bring to my work, to say we are going to work with the private sector and home builders to increase 3 million homes, increase by 3 million homes by the end of my first term. My work that is related to having a friend when I was in high school who was sexually assaulted by her stepfather.
I can consider
And
one of
my
those
focus
necessary
then
evils.
on protecting
I
women
mean, it's
and children
like
from violent crime is based on a value that is deeply
just,
grounded in the
you know, it's fossil
importance
fuels.
of
It's
standing
an
up for
efficient
those who
way
are
of
most vulnerable.
extracting
My work
fossil fuels
that is
that
about protecting Social
has,
Security and Medicare is based on
has a lot of
long-standing work that I have done.
side effects.
Protecting seniors from scams. My values have not changed. And what is important is that there is a
So, you know,
president
like,
who
you know,
actually brings
oil
values
and gas
and
is a
perspective
necessary evil,
that is
quote
about
unquote.
lifting people up and not beating people down. And name calling. The true measure of the leader is the leader who actually understands the strength is not in beating people down, it's in lifting people up. I intend to be that president.
President Trump, your
Well, first of
response?
all, I wasn't given $400 million. I wish I was. My father was a Brooklyn builder, Brooklyn, Queens, and a great father, and I learned a lot from him. But I was given a fraction of that, a tiny fraction. And I
A
built it into
small
many,
loan
many
of $1
billions
million,
dollars, many
a
billions.
small
And when
loan.
people see it, they are even surprised. So we don't have to talk about that. Fracking, she's been against it for 12 years. Defund the police, she's been against that forever. She gave all that stuff up very wrongly, very horribly, and everybody's laughing at it, okay? They're all laughing at it. She gave up at least 12 and probably 14 or 15 different policies, like she was
16,
big on defund
20,
the police.
25,
In Minnesota,
30.
she went out, wait a minute, I'm talking now, if you don't mind, please. Does that sound familiar?
Huh?
She went out in Minnesota and wanted to let criminals that killed people.
Was she even
that
interrupting
burned
him?
down Minneapolis. She went out and raised money to get them out of jail. She did things that nobody would ever think of. Now she wants to do transgender operations on illegal aliens that are in prison. This is a radical left liberal that would do this. She wants to confiscate your guns, and she will never allow fracking in
Transgender operations on
fracking in Pennsylvania
immigrant
will end on day one.
prisoners.
Just to finish one thing, so important in my opinion. So I
Just do them all. Do them all at once.
When they took over, they got rid of it, started getting rid of it, and the prices were going up the roof. They immediately
It's
let
a
these
three-hit
guys go
combo.
to where they were. I would have been 5 times, 4 times, 5 times higher, because you're talking about
The
3.5
five
years
time.
ago.
Five
They got
time.
it up
5
to where
time.
I was, because they had no choice, because the prices of energy were quadrupling and doubling. You saw what happened to gasoline. So they said, let's go back to Trump. But if she won the election, the day after that election, they'll go back to destroying our country, and oil will be dead, fossil fuel will be dead. We'll go back to windmills, and we'll go back to solar.
We're going to go back to windmills. Remember whenever we relied entirely on windmills?
By the way, I'm a big fan of solar, but they take
Love solar, by the way.
400.
I just talk shit on it, but I love it. Also,
Trump, we have a
these
lot
are
of
not good
issues
things
that we
for the
have to get
environment.
Trump, shut the fuck up.
Thank you.
Lindsay, thank you. We have an
Trump
election in
literally
just 56
screaming at
days.
windmills. More at
And I want to
11.
talk about the peaceful transfer of power, which, of course, we all know is a cornerstone of our democracy, and the role of a president in a moment of crisis. Mr. President, on January 6th, you told your supporters to march to the Capitol. You said you would be right there with them. The
It was
country and the
mostly
world saw
peaceful.
what played out at the Capitol that day, the officers coming under attack. Aides in the West Wing say you watched it unfold on television off the Oval Office. You did send out tweets, but it was more than 2 hours before you sent out that video message telling your supporters to go home. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day?
I did it perfectly. It was awesome.
A thing that isn't covered peacefully and patriotically. I said during my speech, not later on. Peacefully and patriotically.
I covered my bases,
and
you
nobody
see.
on the other side was killed. Ashley Babbitt was shot by an out-of-control police officer that should have never.
I knew he was going to
ever
bring up
shot
Ashley
her.
Babbitt.
It's a disgrace. But we didn't do this group of people that have been treated so badly. I ask, what about all the people that are pouring into our country and killing
Bro, there's
people?
video
that she
of it.
allowed to pour
We
in?
all
She was
know
the
what
border czar.
happened.
Remember that. She was the border czar. She doesn't want to be called the border czar because she's embarrassed.
You
by
know,
the border.
January
In fact,
6th might have been
at the
bad, but
beginning,
what about
"Oh,
the
I'm
what about
surprised
the
you're not
border?
talking about the border yet." That's because she knows what a bad job they've done.
Remember
What
earlier when
about
I said
those
we
people?
relate
When are they
every
gonna be
issue to
prosecuted?
immigration?
When are these people from countries all over the world, not just South America?
Every
they're coming in
single
from
one.
all over the world, David, all over the world. And crime rates are down all over the world because of it.
But let me just
when
ask
are those, David, when are those people going to be prosecuted? When are the people that burned down Minneapolis going to be prosecuted? Or in Seattle? They went into Seattle. They took over a big percentage of the city of Seattle.
Mr.
When are
Trump,
those
this
people
does not
gonna be
have anything to
prosecuted?
do with the
But
question.
let me just ask
You might ask her that question.
You were the president. You were watching it unfold on television. It's a very simple question as we move forward toward another election. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day?
No,
I had nothing
it was
to do
awesome.
with that other than they asked me to make a speech. I showed up for a speech.
They
I said,
asked
I think
me?
it's
Who
gonna
is
be
they?
good. I went to Nancy
Who is
Pelosi
they?
and the mayor of Washington, D.C., and the mayor put it back in writing, as you know. I said, you know, this is going to be a very big rally or whatever you want to call it. And again, it wasn't done by me. It was done by others. I said, I'd like to give you 10,000 National Guard or soldiers. They rejected me. Nancy Pelosi rejected me. It was just 2 weeks ago. Her daughter has a tape of her saying she is fully responsible for what happened. They want to get rid of that tape. It would have never happened if Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington did their
It's
job.
Nancy
I wasn't
Pelosi's
responsible
fault.
for security. Nancy Pelosi was responsible. She didn't do her job.
The question was about you as president, not about former Speaker Pelosi, but I do want Vice
It's
President Harris
Nancy's
to respond
fault.
here.
Nancy Pelosi should be a drink.
I was
Is
at
it
the
not?
Capitol on January 6th.
I think
I
I
was
think it
the
was. I
vice
believe I
president
removed it.
elect. I was
Once
also
upon a
an
time, it
acting
was a
senator.
drink.
I was there. And on that day, the President of the United States incited a violent mob to attack our nation's capital, to desecrate our nation's capital. On that day, 140 law enforcement officers were injured.
It
and
said there was
some
going to be 2
died.
ad breaks, but we're like halfway
And
done. And I'm
understand,
like, I'm wondering when the ad break is because I have to get another
has been
drink.
indicted and impeached for exactly that reason. But this is not an isolated situation. Let's remember Charlottesville, where there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate.
Remember?
And what did the president
Remember
then
Charlottesville?
at the time say? There were fine people on each side. Let's remember that
Remember?
when it came to the Proud Boys, a militia, the president said, the former president said, stand back and stand by.
A nice play to move the chains.
everyone watching
you just have to nickel and dime it down the field.
I say, we don't have to go back. Let's not go back. We're not going back. It's time to turn the page. And if that was a bridge too far for you, well, there is a place in our campaign for you to stand for country, to stand for our democracy, to stand for rule of law, and to end the chaos.
Both candidates are the law and order candidates.
The approach that is about attacking the foundations of our democracy because you don't like the outcome. And be clear on that point. Donald Trump, the candidate, has said in this election there will be a bloodbath if this and the outcome of this election is not to his liking. Let's turn the page
Dude,
on
I am
this.
so ready for election denialism too. It's gonna be so awesome.
And not go backwards to the past.
Let me just follow up here.
It was a different term, and it was a term that related to energy because they have destroyed our energy business. That was where bloodbath was. Also, on Charlottesville, that story has been, as you would say, debunked. Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity, Jesse, all of these people, they covered it. If they go an extra sentence, they will see it was perfect. It was debunked in almost every newspaper.
He just listed 2 Fox News.
They bring all of this
2 Fox News hosts.
You talk about the Capitol. Why are we allowing these millions of people to come through on the Southern
The Fox
border?
News guys said I was awesome. What do you want from me?
And I would be very proud to do it. I would say we would both leave this debate right now. I'd like to see her go down to Washington, D.C. during this debate because we're wasting a lot of time. Go down to, because she's been so bad, it's so ridiculous. Go down to Washington, D.C.
Right now?
And let her sign a bill to close up the border because they have the right to do it. They don't need bills. They have the right
Go
to
there
do it.
and sign the bill that is waiting on her desk right now that she can sign as the vice president.
You'll say, come on down to the office. Let's sign a bill. If he signs a bill that the border is closed, all he has to do is say it to the Border Patrol, who are phenomenal.
Like start walking?
The border is closed. Those people are killing many people, unlike J6.
What about immigration? Oh my God! I should have put this on the drinking game list.
This into focus, truth in these times that we're living in. Mr. President, for 3.5 years after you lost the 2020 election, you repeatedly falsely claimed that you won, many times saying you won in a landslide. In the past couple of
it was a
weeks leading up
landslide.
to this debate, you have said, quote, you lost by a whisker, that you, quote, didn't quite make it, that you came up a little bit short.
I said that?
Are you now acknowledging that you lost in 2020?
No, I don't acknowledge that at all.
But
I
you
said
did
that
say
sarcastically. We said, oh, we lost by a whisker. That was said sarcastically. Look.
It was a joke.
I
was joking.
All you have to do is look at it. And they should have sent it back to the legislatures for approval. I got almost 75 million votes, the most votes any sitting president has ever gotten. I was told if I got 63, which was what I got in 2016, you can't.
Bro, the other guy got more. What do you want?
Never be thinking about an election.
The other guy got more. You can't brag about your numbers when the other guy's number was big.
We have to have borders and we have to have good elections. Our elections are bad. And a lot of these illegal immigrants coming in,
the elections are bad, but he chooses to participate in them. Curious.
They're in practically, and these people are trying to get them to vote, and that's why they're allowing them to come into our country.
I did watch all of these pieces of video. I didn't detect the sarcasm. Lost by a whisker. We didn't quite make it. And we should just point out here as clarification, and you know this, you and your allies, 60 cases in front of many judges, many of them
no
Republican.
Judge looked at it
and said
they
there was
said
no
we didn't have
widespread
standing.
fraud.
That's the other thing. They said we didn't have standing, a technicality. Can you
it's been
imagine
Trump
a system
versus moderator
where
for a
person
very
in an
large
election
portion of
doesn't
this
have
debate.
standing? The president of the United States doesn't have standing. That's how
The president should be able to do whatever
if
they
you
want.
Look at the facts, and I'd love to have you. You'll do a special on it. I'll show you Georgia, and I'll show you Wisconsin, and I'll show you Pennsylvania, and I'll show you. We have so many facts and statistics, but you know what? That doesn't matter, because we have to solve the problem that we have right now. That's old news. And the problem that we have right now is we have a nation in decline, and they have put it into decline. We have a nation that is dying, David.
Mr. President, thank you. Vice President Harris, you heard the president there tonight. He said he didn't say that he lost by a whisker. So he still believes he did not lose the election that was won by President Biden and yourself.
Well,
but I do want to ask
the
you
other
about
guy
something
won it,
that's
but he
come up
didn't
in the
lose
last
it.
couple of days. This was a post from President Trump about this upcoming election just weeks away. He said, when I win, those people who cheated, and
Not a
then he
single
lists
question about
donors,
Title
voters,
IX yet?
election
Sad
officials,
face.
he says will be
We
prosecuted
can get to
the
your.
fullest extent
We can get
of
to
the
the
law, which will include long-term prison sentences.
transphobia hour
Campaign's top
eventually.
lawyers responded saying,
Certainly,
we won't let
is
Donald
what
Trump
I'm
intimidate
sure
us.
that this relates
we won't
to.
let him suppress the vote. Is that what you believe he's trying to do here?
I only
Donald
care about
Trump was
women's sports
fired
whenever
by
the
81
damn
million
men are playing in it.
So let's be clear about that. And clearly he is having a very difficult time processing that. But we cannot afford to have a president of the United States who attempts, as he did in the past, to upend the will of the voters in a free and fair election. And I'm going to tell you
women's
that
rights?
I have
Yeah.
traveled the world as Vice President of the United States.
Everyone
And
cares
world
about
leaders are laughing
women's
at Donald
sports.
Trump. I have
I'm the number
talked
one
with
women's
military
sports
leaders,
guy.
some of whom worked with you, and they say you're a disgrace. And when you then talk in this way in a presidential debate and deny what over and over again are court cases you have lost because you did in fact lose that election, it leads one to believe that perhaps we do not have in the candidate to my right the temperament or the ability to not be confused about fact. That's deeply troubling, and the
Got a
American
lot more
people
than just
deserve
sports.
better.
I'll give you 1 minute to respond, Mr. President.
Let me just tell
Title
you about
IX
what it
is just
Victor Orban,
that-
one of the most
that not
respected men. They
just
call him a strong
women's
man.
sports.
He's a tough person, smart. Prime Minister of Hungary. They said, why
Like
is the whole
we're
world
obviously
blowing up?
relating.
3 years
Like the only
ago it
reason he
wasn't.
cares is
Why
because we're
is it
trying to be
blowing up?
transphobic. Like
He said, because you need Trump back as president. They were afraid of him. China was afraid, and I don't like to use the word afraid, but I'm just quoting him. China was afraid of him. North Korea was afraid of him. Look at what's going on with North Korea, by the way. He said Russia was afraid of him. I ended the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, and Biden.
my take on this on the whole sports shtick is always one league. Everyone should play together.
In our country,
Every single person.
He ended that, but he let the Russians build a pipeline going all over Europe and heading into Germany.
One
the
league.
biggest pipeline in the world. Look,
Regardless of
Orban
gender identity, one
said
league.
it. He said the most
Everyone plays together.
respected, most feared
It's the most
person
fair.
is Donald Trump. We had no problems when Trump was president, but when this weak, pathetic man
Not just about
that
sports,
you
you
saw
ignorant,
at a debate
misogynistic
just a few
prick.
months
It's
ago,
me, Mr.
that if he won
Misogyny.
in that debate, he'd be running instead of her. She got no
You guys
votes.
know me.
He got 14 million votes. What you did, you talk about a threat to democracy.
Oh. What? What? A duh.
Americans among them. Vice President Harris, in December, you said, quote, Israel has a right to defend itself, but you added, quote, it matters how, saying international humanitarian
Whatever he
law
just
must be
said.
respected. Israel must do more to protect innocent civilians. You said that 9 months ago. Now an estimated 40,000 Palestinians
Bro, when the fuck did they?
are dead.
I thought they said that they were
More
going to
than
run
100
commercials.
hostages
I need to get more alcohol.
Just last week, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said there's not a deal in the
BB.
making. President Biden has not been able to break through the stalemate. How would you do it?
Well, let's understand how we got here. On October 7, Hamas, a terrorist organization,
Hamas
slaughtered 1,200 Israelis, many of them young people who were simply attending a concert. Women were horribly raped. And so absolutely, I said then, I say now, Israel has a right to defend itself. We would. And how it does so matters. Because it is also true, far too many innocent Palestinians have been killed. Children, mothers. What we know is that this war must end. It must end immediately, and the way it will end is we need a ceasefire deal and we need the hostages out. And so we will continue to work around the clock on that. Work around the clock,
They're going
also
to do a
understanding that
16th
we
and 9/11.
must chart a course for a two-state solution. And in that solution, there must be security for the Israeli people and Israel, and an equal measure
Yeah, I
for
feel
the
like we've been trying that one for a
But the one thing I
while.
will assure you always, I will always give Israel the ability to defend itself, in particular as it relates to Iran and any threat that Iran and its proxies pose to Israel. But we must have a two-state solution where we can rebuild Gaza, where the Palestinians have security, self-determination, and the dignity they so rightly deserve.
President Trump, how would you negotiate with Netanyahu and also Hamas in order to get the hostages out and prevent the killing of more innocent civilians in Gaza?
If I were president, it would have never started. If I were president, Russia would have never.
He would have stopped it, folks. He would have stopped it.
He would have never, and there was no threat of it either, by the way, for 4 years.
I would have said, "Don't do it," and they would have said, "Okay, Mr. Trump. Okay, we won't do it."
Far worse than people understand what's going on over there. But when she mentions about Israel, all of a sudden, she
would have
hates
gone back
Israel.
in time to
She
stop
wouldn't
it.
even
Yeah.
meet
In regards
with
to Israel-Palestine,
Netanyahu
it's
when he went
like
to Congress to make a very
it's
important
been
speech.
started,
She
my
refused to
guy.
be there 'cause she was at a sorority party of hers. She wanted to go to the sorority party. She hates Israel. If she's president, I believe that Israel will not exist within 2 years from now. And I've been pretty good at predictions,
Okay.
and I hope I'm wrong about that one. She hates Israel. At the same time, in her own way, she hates the Arab population because the whole place is going to get blown
This
up.
guy-
Arabs, Jewish
This guy
people,
banned
Israel will be
banned
gone.
Arabs from traveling
It
to the
would have
United
never
States.
happened. Iran was broke under Donald Trump.
That was one of
Now
his
Iran
executive
has
orders.
$300 billion because they took off
For
all the
no
sanctions
reason.
that I had. Iran had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah or any of the 28 different.
This is pot calling the kettle
spheres
black when
of terror.
but
They are
also the
spheres
kettle
of
isn't
terror.
black.
Horrible terror. They had no money.
He's
It was a
pretending that
big
the kettle
story,
is
and
black,
you know it.
and
You
he's the
covered
pot,
it
and he's
very
calling the
well,
kettle
actually.
black.
They had no money for terror. They were broke. Now they're a rich nation, and now what they're doing is they're spreading that money around. Look at what's happening with the Houthis and Yemen. Look at what's going on in the Middle East. This would have never happened. I will get that settled and fast, and I'll get the war with Ukraine and Russia ended. If I'm president-elect, I'll get it done before even becoming president.
Vice President.
Okay, buddy.
Israel.
Wow, you're gonna between the months of November and January, it's done.
Supported Israel and the Israeli people. He knows that. He's trying to again divide and distract.
He'll get it
from the
done,
reality,
folks.
Which
He's
it is very well
a little bit of
known
elbow grease,
that Donald Trump
some
is weak
determination, and a
wrong on
smidge of
national
moxie.
security and foreign policy. It is well known that he admires dictators, wants to be a dictator on day one, according to
I'm doing a shot of tequila.
himself. It is well known that he said of Putin that he can do whatever the hell he wants and go into Ukraine. It is well known that he said when Russia went into Ukraine, it was brilliant. It is well known he exchanged love letters with Kim Jong-un.
What do you think
and
they
it is
said?
absolutely well known.
I thought
that
you looked cute
these
yesterday.
dictators and autocrats are rooting for you to be president
I liked
again
your
because they're
backpack.
so clear. They can manipulate you with flattery and favors. And that is why so many military leaders who you have worked with have told me you are a disgrace. That is why we understand that we have to have a president who is not consistently weak and wrong on
Vice
national
President
security,
Harris.
including the importance of upholding and respecting in highest regard our military.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
They're the ones, and she's the one that caused it. That's weak
Kilo
for
time.
national security by allowing every nation last month for the year, 168 different countries sending people into our country. Their crime rates are way down. Putin endorsed her last week, said, I hope she wins. And I think he meant it, because what he's gotten away with is absolutely incredible. It wouldn't have happened with me.
Ooh, I hope
Leaders
Tim Pool
of
gets
other
brought up. That'd be
countries
really
think that they're
funny.
weak and incompetent, and they are. They're grossly incompetent. And I just ask one question. Why does Biden go in and kill the
Straight lime
Keystone
juice?
pipeline
That's the chaser,
and
yeah.
approve the single biggest deal that Russia's ever made, Nord Stream 2, the biggest pipeline anywhere in the world going to Germany and all over Europe? Because they're weak and they're ineffective. And Biden, by the way,
President
gets paid
Trump,
a lot of money.
Thank you. We have a lot of issues.
Where's the
to get
desk
to.
salt?
We'll be right
Yeah, I
back
need
with much more of this
to
historic
keep some
ABC
salt
News
on hand.
presidential debate from the National Constitution Center right here in Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
Holy fuck! There's no way I just did a shot and they go to fucking ads immediately. Fuck me. God damn it. Okay. I'll now go grab some ice and another soda. Dude, fucking unreal.
Progress. Moving in a positive direction. We all want our lives to do that. Why is progress also in our name? We've always believed insurance should do more. That's why we've gifted over 1,000 vehicles to veterans, funded housing programs for families in need, and why we're working to make roads safer.
You're doing good.
And housing more fair. For us, that's real progress.
You ready for this?
The word is out.
Will you stop?
Sorry.
Here we go. If is now streaming on Paramount Plus.
Look who's back.
This is just so exciting.
It's hilarious
Hey, Cal. Good God.
and perfect for the whole family.
So sweet.
I'm gonna go out on a limb here, but I like it.
He loves me.
All right. I love
Okay.
Rated PG. Now streaming on Paramount Plus.
Streaming on the free CBS News app.
Washington is the seat of power. National security, foreign policy, global economics, every story comes through Washington in some way. We bring some of the most powerful voices in America to the table. We don't just ask the questions, you have to go deeper. We try to understand what's at the heart of the issue we're talking about, to then come forward with solutions.
Face the Nation on CBS.
Tell myself I need a drink, now the soda kind. This is outrageous. Never been more embarrassed to be an American. If you've never been more embarrassed to be an American, you have not been watching American politics in the past 10 years, because it has gotten better. In 2016, it was really stupid.
I knew that college was the ticket to break this cycle.
The end of affirmative action, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Washington is the seat of power.
Play that ad
National
again.
Security, foreign policy, global economics, every story comes through Washington in some way. We bring some of the most powerful voices in America to the table. We don't just ask the questions, you have
Strange
to
that
go deeper.
it's
We
a
try to
90-minute debate and they ran
understand
ads
what's at the
after
heart
like
of the issue we're talking about,
65
to then
minutes.
come forward with solutions.
Face the Nation on CBS.
The justices ruled that Harvard and the University of North Carolina violated the Constitution.
In the aftermath of the Supreme Court decision to end affirmative action in college admissions, uncertainty sets in for some students of color.
Affirmative action really gave us an equal opportunity.
CBS Reports explores the historic decision.
Republican primary ads, what, where they're selling you fucking gold coins?
I knew that college was the ticket to break this cycle.
The end of affirmative
RNC, go and buy some government bonds ads.
Washington
What?
is the seat
What is going
of
on?
power.
Why are we playing the
National
same ad over and over
security,
again?
foreign policy, global economics, every story comes through Washington in some way.
What is going on?
We bring some of the most powerful voices in America to the table. We don't just ask the questions, you have to go deeper. We try to understand
What is your opinion on what's going
of
on?
the issue we're talking about, to then come
what
forward
is
with
going on?
solutions.
Face the Nation on CBS.
I asked this question to you.
The justices ruled that Harvard and the University
Her
of
election
North
was wild. My
Carolina
dead grandma,
violated
10 years,
the
literally somehow voted for
In the
Biden.
aftermath of the
Yeah,
Supreme
me
Court
too.
decision to end affirmative action in college
I died in
admissions,
2014 and I voted for
uncertainty
Biden
sets
4
in for some
times
students
in
of color.
2020.
Affirmative action really gave us an equal opportunity.
CBS Reports explores the historic decision and what
This
it
is
means
a
for
real
those
and
chasing
factual thing that
opportunity
actually
to change
occurred.
their lives.
I knew that college was the ticket to break this cycle.
The end of affirmative action, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Coming up, our series. Wait a minute. Tom, is that you working the camera? Keep leaning out of your close-up.
I voted for Joe Biden 25 times.
I swear they should have a camera during the commercial. Such a good time here.
Your morning routine just got better.
Are you sarcastic
CBS
like
Mornings.
Trump? I can't pick up on it. I will leave this to be determined. You can take the rest of the debate to determine the answer for yourself.
Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Here again,
Go Birds.
And Lindsay Davis.
Welcome back to this historic ABC
How do you
News
address claims that
presidential
Trump
debate
boosted
tonight. We're
the
gonna continue
economy?
here, and I want to turn to the war in Ukraine. We're now 2.5 years into this.
We're comparing
conflict.
it to
Mr.
the Biden
President,
economy.
It has been the position of the Biden administration that we
this
must
one's way
defend
better.
Ukraine from Russia, from Vladimir Putin, to defend their sovereignty, their democracy, that it's in America's best interest to do so, arguing that if Putin wins, he may be emboldened to move even further into other countries. You have said you would solve this war in 24 hours. You said so just before the break tonight. How exactly would you do that? And I want to ask you a very simple question tonight. Do you want Ukraine to win this war?
I want the war to stop. I want to save
That
lives
wasn't the question.
that are being uselessly, people being killed by the millions. It's
If
the
I were
millions.
president, it would have never
It's so
happened.
much worse than the numbers that you're getting, which are fake numbers. Look, we're in for 250 billion or more because they don't ask Europe, which is a much bigger beneficiary to getting this thing done than we are. They're in for $150 billion less because Biden and you don't have the courage to ask Europe like I did with NATO. They paid billions and billions, hundreds of billions of dollars when I said, either you pay up or we're not going to protect you anymore. So that's maybe one of the reasons they don't like me as much as they like weak people. But
in billions.
You take a look at what's happening. We're in for 250 to 275 billion. They're into 100 to 150.
Dude,
They
get
should
on
be
with it.
forced
What
to
numbers and numbers and
With
numbers.
that being said, I want to get the war settled. I know Zelensky very well, and I know Putin very well. I have a good relationship, and they respect your president, okay? They respect him.
Your
They don't
president.
respect Biden. How would you respect him? Why? For what reason? He hasn't even made a phone call in 2 years to Putin, hasn't spoken to anybody. They don't even try and get it. That is a war that's dying to be settled. I will get it settled before I even become president. If I win, when I'm president-elect, and what I'll do is I'll speak to one, I'll speak to the other, I'll get them together. That war would have never happened. And in fact, when I saw Putin after I left, unfortunately left because our country has gone to hell. But after I left, when I saw him building up soldiers, he did it after I left, I said, oh, he must be negotiating. It must be a good, strong point of negotiation. Well, it wasn't, because Biden had no idea
So you're
how
wrong.
to talk to him. He had no idea how to stop it. And now you have millions of people dead, and it's only getting worse, and it could lead to World War III. Don't kid yourself, David. We're playing with World War III, and we have a president that we don't even know if he's... Where is our president? We don't even know if he's a president.
And just to clarify
they
here...
threw him out of a campaign like a dog. We don't even know. Is he our president? But we have a president,
Mr. President,
that doesn't know he's alive.
Your time is up. Just to clarify in the question, do you believe it's in the U.S. best interest for Ukraine to win this war, yes or no?
I think it's the U.S. best interest to get this war finished and just get it done.
All right.
Negotiate.
Okay, so you're not going to
because
answer
we
it.
have to stop all of these human
Where
lives
Bowden? That's what I'm
from being
asking.
destroyed.
I hope he comes out later.
Vice President Harris, I want to get your thoughts on support for Ukraine in this moment, but also as Commander-in-Chief, if elected, how would you deal with Vladimir Putin, and would it be any different from what we're seeing from President Biden?
Well, first of all, it's important to remind the former president you're not running against Joe Biden, you're running against me. I believe the reason that Donald Trump says that this war would be over within 24 hours is because he would just give it up. And that's not who we are as Americans. Let's understand what happened here. I actually met with Zelensky a few days before Russia invaded.
The winner choosing one side means more people die.
To
I'm pretty
change
anti-imperialism, so
territorial to define
I'm against
one of
the
most
imperialistic
important international
side.
rules and norms, which is the importance of sovereignty and territorial integrity. And I met with President Zelensky. I shared with him American intelligence about how he could defend himself. Days later, I went to NATO's eastern flank, to Poland and Romania. And through the work that I and others did, we brought 50 countries together to support Ukraine in its righteous defense. And because of our support, because of the air defense, the ammunition, the artillery, the javelins, the Abrams tanks that we have provided, Ukraine stands as an independent and free country. If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now. And understand what that would mean, because Putin's agenda is not just about Ukraine. Understand why the European allies and our NATO allies are so thankful that you are no longer president, and that we understand the importance of the greatest military alliance the world has ever known, which is NATO, and what we have done to preserve the ability of Zelensky and the Ukrainians to fight for their independence. Otherwise, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv with his eyes on the rest of Europe, starting with Poland. And why don't you tell the 800,000 Polish Americans right
conquer
here in
all of Europe.
Pennsylvania how quickly you would give up for the sake of favor and what you think is a friendship with what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch.
Vice President Harris, thank you. We've heard from both of you on Ukraine tonight. Afghanistan came up in the last hour. I wanted her to respond to something you said earlier. And
Trump talks on a muted mic. That's a drink.
Putin would be sitting in Moscow, and he wouldn't have lost 300,000 men and women, but he would have been sitting in Moscow.
Women are soldiers too.
He would have been sitting in Moscow.
Kamala
much happier than he
talks
is
with
right
a
now.
muted mic.
But
That's a drink.
eventually, you know, he's got a thing that other people don't have. He's got nuclear weapons. They don't ever talk about that. He's got nuclear weapons. Nobody ever thinks about that. And eventually,
She acts like she would do
amusing,
anything. She
and
hasn't done
maybe
shit.
he hasn't been that threatening.
Yeah, both
But
parties are
he does
bad
have that.
on
something we don't even like to talk about.
on
Nobody
the
likes to
whole
talk about
aiding
it.
imperialism
But just so
front.
you understand, they sent her to negotiate peace before this war started. 3 days
Crazy how
later,
biased the
he
mods are
went
on this
in
debate.
and he started the war because
It's just
everything
Trump
they
just
said was
lies
weak
all the
and
time.
stupid.
He just
They said the
just
wrong
makes shit
things.
up and
That war
lies,
should
and they
have
say,
never
Trump,
started.
you're lying.
She was the emissary.
And then he says, no, I'm
They
not
sent
lying.
her
And they're
in
like,
to negotiate
okay.
with Zelensky and Putin. And she did.
If he doesn't
And
want to
the
get
war
fact
started
checked,
3
maybe he
days
shouldn't
later.
say
And that's
it
the kind of talent we have with
unfactual
her.
things.
She's worse than Biden, in my opinion. I think he's the worst president in the history of our country. She goes down as
In the history of our country.
vice president in the history
That's a
of
drink.
our country. But let me tell you something. She is a horrible negotiator. They sent her in to negotiate. As soon as they left, Putin did the invasion.
President Trump, thank you. You did bring up something. You said she went to negotiate with Vladimir Putin. Vice President Harris, have you ever met Vladimir Putin? Can you clarify tonight?
Yet again, I said it at the beginning of this debate, you're going to hear a bunch of lies coming from this fellow.
Truing.
And that is another one. When I went to meet with President Zelensky, I've now met with him over 5 times. The reality is it has been about standing as America always should, as a leader upholding international rules and norms, as a leader who shows strength, understanding that the alliances we have around the world are dependent on our ability to look out for our friends and not favor our enemies because
she
you
can ask him
adore
to be her doubles
strongmen instead of
partner.
caring about democracy. And that is very much what is at stake here. The President of the United States is commander-in-chief. And the American people have a right to rely on a president who understands the significance of America's role and responsibility.
Trump's toupee looks rather disheveled today, no?
And ensuring we stand up
Typically
for
not
our
how it
principles and
appears.
not sell them
Am I
for the
wrong on that?
benefit of personal flattery.
We've talked about Ukraine and Vladimir Putin. I do want to talk about Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of this debate. I want to move on to
He needs
Afghanistan.
to water it.
Said Trump did the most amazing thing I've ever seen. He got these countries, the 28 countries at the time, to pay up. He said, I've never seen. He's the head of NATO. He said, I've never seen. For years, we were paying almost all of NATO. We were being ripped off by European nations, both on trade and on NATO. I got them to pay up by saying one of the
Not
statements he made
Gyaru
before,
maxing.
if you don't pay, we're not going to protect you.
What does
Otherwise,
that
we would have
mean?
never gotten it. He said it was one of the most incredible jobs that he's ever seen.
One of the best
Thank
jobs.
you. I want to turn to Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of the debate, and we witnessed a poignant moment today on Capitol Hill, honoring the soldiers who died in the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan. I do want to ask the Vice President, do you believe you bear any responsibility in the way that withdrawal played out?
Well, I will tell you, I agreed with President Biden's decision to pull out of Afghanistan. 4 presidents said they would, and Joe Biden did. And as a result, America's taxpayers are not paying the $300 million a day we were paying for that endless war. And as of today, there is
What if we
not
go back? What if
one
we invade
member of
Iran?
the United States military
Thoughts?
who is in active duty in a combat zone.
Everyone's,
in
like,
any
mad at him,
war
right?
zone around the world, the first time this
What if we
century.
invade and
But
like
let's understand
just
how
fuck
we
it
got
up?
to where we are. Donald Trump, when he was president, negotiated one of the weakest deals you can imagine. He calls himself a deal maker. Even his national security advisor said it was a weak, terrible deal. And here's how it went down. He bypassed the Afghan government. He negotiated directly with a terrorist organization called the Taliban. The negotiation involved the Taliban getting 5,000 Taliban terrorists released. And get this, and the president at the time invited the Taliban to Camp David, a place of storied significance for us as Americans, a place where we honor the importance of American diplomacy, where we invite and receive respected world leaders. And this former president, as president, invited them to Camp David.
Say what you really mean, Kamala.
Appreciate the role and responsibility of the President of the United States to be commander-in-chief with a level of respect. And this gets back to the point of how he has
I think
consistently
it's pretty bold stance,
disparaged
Mr.
and
I'm against
demeaned
imperialism.
members of our military, fallen soldiers,
You have to defend it
and the work
preemptively.
that we must do to uphold the strength and the respect of the United States of America around the world.
Vice President Harris,
Who's
thank you.
winning?
President Trump, your response
Robert
to
F.
her
Kennedy
saying
Jr.
the
is winning.
negotiations
Thank
with
you.
the Taliban.
In
So,
spirit.
If you take a look at that period of time, the Taliban was killing our soldiers, a lot of them, with snipers. And I got involved with the Taliban because the Taliban was doing the killing. That's the fighting force within Afghanistan. They don't bother doing that because, you know, they deal with the wrong people all the time. But I got involved.
The Taliban.
And Abdul is the head of the Taliban. He is still the head of the Taliban. And I told Abdul, don't do it anymore. You do it
I
anymore,
told
you're
him
going to have problems.
it's gonna be
And he
bad.
said, "Why do you send me a picture of my
your
house?"
foreign
I said, "You're gonna have
policy.
to figure that out,
I'm gonna
Abdul."
give you
And for
I'm gonna give you
18
some
months,
paddlings
we
if
had
you do any
nobody killed.
invasions.
We did have an agreement negotiated by Mike Pompeo. It was a very good agreement. The reason it was good, we were getting out. We would have been out faster than them, but we wouldn't have lost the soldiers.
Faster than them.
We wouldn't have left many Americans.
My time is
behind,
better
and we
than her
wouldn't have
time.
we wouldn't have left
See me on the track.
$85 billion worth of brand new, beautiful military equipment behind. And just to finish, they blew it. The agreement said you have to do this, this, and they didn't do it. They didn't do it. The agreement was terminated by us because they didn't do what they were supposed to do.
I want to move
and
on.
these people
I want to
did
move
the
on.
worst withdrawal.
You and me both.
In my opinion, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. And by the way, that's why Russia attacked Ukraine, because they saw how incompetent she
Wow.
and her boss are.
President Trump, thank you. I want to move on now to race and politics in this country. Mr. President, you recently said of Vice President Harris, quote, "I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black." I want to ask
Asking him about it.
here tonight. Why do you believe it's appropriate to weigh in on the racial identity of your opponent?
I don't, and I don't care. I don't care what she is.
I don't care.
I don't care. You make a big deal out of something. I couldn't care less. Whatever she wants to be is okay with me.
But those are your words, so I'm
I don't
asking.
know. I don't know. I mean, all
Whatever
I can
she
say is
wants
I
to
read
be.
what she was not black, that she put out.
I'm calling this one explicit
I'll say
racism.
that. And then I read that she was black, and that's okay. Either one was okay with me. That's up to her. That's up to her.
Oh
Vice
my
President Harris, your
God.
thoughts on this?
I think it's, I mean, honestly, I think it's a tragedy that we have someone who wants to be president who has consistently, over the course of his career,
Donald, we're
attempted to use race
live.
to divide the American people. You know, I do believe that the vast majority of us know that we have so much more in common than what separates us, and we don't want this kind of approach that is just constantly trying to divide us, and especially by race. And let's remember how Donald Trump started. He was land, he owned buildings, and he was investigated because he refused to rent property to black families. Let's remember, this is the same individual
Trump a
who took
redliner?
out a full-page ad in the New York Times calling for the execution of 5 young black and Latino boys who were innocent, the Central Park 5. Took out a full-page ad calling for their execution. This is the same individual who spread birther lies about the first black president of the United States. And I think the American people want
It's a line
better than
drive
that.
into deep left
Want better
field.
than this. Want someone who understands, as I do, I travel our country. We see in each other a friend. We see in each other a neighbor. We don't want a leader who is constantly trying to have Americans point their fingers at each other. I meet with people all the time who tell me, can we please just have discourse about how we're going to invest in the aspirations and the ambitions and the dreams of the American people? Knowing that regardless of people's color or the language their grandmother speaks, we all have the same dreams and aspirations and want a president who invests in those, not in hate and division.
Vice President Harris, thank you. Lindsay?
President Trump, this is now your 3rd time.
This is the most divisive presidency in the history of our country. There's never been anything like it. They're destroying our country, and they come up with things like what she just said. Going back many, many years, when a lot of people, including Mayor Bloomberg, agreed with me on the Central Park.
Mayor
They
Bloomberg,
admitted, they said
a
they pled
trusted
guilty.
source, Mayor Bloomberg.
And I said, well, if they pled guilty, they badly hurt a person, killed a person ultimately. And if they pled guilty, then they pled, we're not guilty. But this is a person that has to stretch back years, 40, 50 years ago.
Noted Democratic
because
candidate
there's nothing now. I built one
Mike
of the greatest
Bloomberg.
economies in the history of the world, and I'm going to build it again. It's going to be bigger, better, and stronger. But they're destroying our economy. They have no idea what a good economy is. Their oil policies, every
Dude,
single policy.
the
and remember
fucking-
this. She is Biden.
The
You know, she's trying to get away
stonks
from
were like
Biden. I
at
don't know the gentleman,
constant
she says.
all-time
She
highs
is
all
Biden.
throughout the year.
The worst inflation we've ever had, a horrible economy because inflation has made it so bad, and she can't get away with that.
Thank you. Your time is up, Lindsay.
I want to respond to that, though. I want to just respond briefly. Clearly, I am not Joe Biden, and I am certainly not Donald Trump. And what I do offer is a new generation of leadership for our country. One who believes in what is possible, one who brings a sense of optimism about what we can do instead of always disparaging the American people. I believe in what we can do to strengthen our small businesses, which is why I have a plan. Let's talk about our plans and let's compare the plans. I have a plan to give startup businesses $50,000 tax deduction, to pursue their ambitions, their innovation, their ideas, their hard work. I have a plan, $6,000 for young families for the first year of your child's life, to help you in that most critical stage of your child's development. I have a plan that is about allowing people to be able to pursue what has been fleeting in terms of the American dream by offering a help with down payment of $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers. That's the kind of conversation, I believe, David, that people really want tonight, as opposed to a conversation that is constantly about belittling and name-calling. Let's turn the page
Vice President
and move
Harris,
forward.
thank you. Let's turn to policy.
President
Let's
Trump,
turn back
we
to
have
policy.
to move on. President Trump.
Let's turn to policy,
She
please.
has a plan to defund the police. She has a
Let's
plan
go.
to confiscate
Classic
everybody's
Republicans
guns.
making
She
the
has a
Democratic
plan
candidate
to
seem more
allow
awesome than they
fracking
actually
in
are.
Pennsylvania or anywhere else.
Okay.
Thank you,
That's
Mr.
what her
President.
plan is until just recently.
I just need
Lindsay,
to
go ahead.
respond
No,
because
Trump,
the
President
former
Trump.
president has said
No, I'm
something
sorry.
twice that I need to
No,
respond to.
I'm sorry.
I
We're
just
going
need
to
to
move on,
respond
Vice
one
President
time
Harris.
to what he
President
Parenthetical
Trump, this is
inaudible.
now your
That's a
third
drink.
time running for president. You have long vowed to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. You have failed to accomplish
She's
that.
Marxist,
You now
she's She wants to
you're gonna
defund the
keep
police.
Obamacare, quote, unless we can do something much better. Last month, you said, quote, we're working on it. So tonight, 9 years after you first started running, do you have a plan, and can you tell us what it is?
Obamacare was lousy health care. Always was. It's not very good today. And what I said, that if we come up
Calling
with
it
something, and we
Obamacare
are
in
working
current
on
year, I
things,
think is kind of
we're
like a
gonna do
losing
it, and we're gonna
strategy.
replace it. But remember this.
I feel like people
inherited
generally have a pretty
Obamacare
favorable
because Democrats
opinion on the
wouldn't
Affordable
change
Care
it. They
Act in
wouldn't
current
vote for
year.
it. They were unanimous. They wouldn't vote to change it. If they would have done that, we would have had a much better plan than Obamacare. But the Democrats came up. They wouldn't vote for it.
It was really,
I
they
had a
called it
choice to make when I was
Obamacare initially
president.
because, like,
Do I
ugh, look
save
how
it and
bad
make
this
it
is.
as good
It's
as it can be? Never
Obamacare.
gonna be
Thanks,
great.
Obama.
Or do I let it rot? And I felt I had an obligation, even though politically it would have been good to just let it rot and let it go away. I decided, and I told my people, the top people, and they're very good people. I have a lot of good people in that administration. We read about the bad ones. We had some real bad ones, too, and so do they. They have really bad ones. The difference is they don't get rid of them. But let me just explain. I had a choice to make. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, or do I let it rot? And I saved it. I did the right thing. But it's still never going to be great, and it's too expensive for people. And what we will do is we're looking at different plans. If we can come up with a plan that's going to cost our people, our population, less money and be better health care than Obamacare, then I would absolutely
It'll
do
be
it.
the
But
best
until then,
socialized
I'd
health
run it
care.
as good as it can be run.
Unlike
just a yes or no, you still do not have a
Marxist
plan.
Kamala,
I have
comrade
concepts of a
Marxist
plan.
Kamala.
I'm not president right now, but if
My health care
we come
plan
up
will
with
be the best
something, I would
socialized
only change it
medicine.
if we come up with something that's better and less expensive. And there are concepts and options we have to do that. And you'll be hearing about it in the not-too-distant future.
Vice President Harris, in 2017, you supported Bernie Sanders' proposal to do away with private insurance and create a government-run health care system. 2 years later, you proposed a plan that included a private insurance option. What is your plan today?
Can you, like, socialize medicine already, Kamala?
Support, and over the last 4 years as vice president, private health care options. But what we need to do is maintain and grow the Affordable Care Act. But I'll get to that, Lindsay. I just need to
What if we
respond to
just,
a
like,
previous
what if
point
we keep it private,
the
but,
former
like, we
president has
make
made.
it a little
I've
more
made very
social?
clear my position on fracking. And then this business about taking everyone's guns away. Tim Walz and I
But
are both
what about
gun
the
owners.
Second
We're not
Amendment?
taking anybody's guns away.
I
So
love
stop
guns.
with the continuous lying about this stuff. As it relates to the Affordable Care Act, understand, just look at the history to know
But
where
also
people
love
stand.
guns.
When Donald
I want to
Trump was
suck on the
president,
barrel of a
60
AR-15
times
personally.
He tried to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. 60 times. I was a senator at the time when I will never forget the early morning hours when it was up for a vote in the United States Senate. And the late, great John McCain, who you have disparaged.
Okay, hold on, partner.
As being
the late great John
you
McCain.
don't like
Is
him,
that
you said at the time?
is that
because
parody?
He got caught. He was an American hero. The late great John McCain. I will never forget that night. Walked onto the Senate floor and said, "No, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't get rid of the Affordable Care Act. You have no
We love
plan."
John McCain.
And what the Affordable Care Act has done is eliminate
And
the
that's the
ability
bottom
of
line,
insurance companies to
because
deny
John
people with
McCain
pre-existing
said
conditions.
so.
I don't have to tell people watching tonight. You remember what that was like?
Alfred with the
Remember
primer.
when
Any
an
shots
insurance
yet?
company could deny
No finish your
if
drinks.
a child had asthma?
We have
if
brought
someone
up
was a
the
breast
Haitians
cancer
are eating your
survivor, if
cats
a,
in
if a
Springfield,
grandparent had
Ohio
diabetes?
bit, though.
And thankfully, as I've been vice president, and we over the last 4 years have strengthened the Affordable Care Act.
That is a thing
we
that
have
we've
allowed
mentioned.
for the first time Medicare to negotiate drug prices on behalf of you, the American people. Donald Trump said he was going to allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices. He never did. We did. And now we have capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. Since I've been vice president, we have capped the cost of prescription medication for seniors at $2,000 a year. And when I am president, we will do that for all people, understanding that the value I bring to this is that access to health care should be a right and not just a privilege of those who can afford it. And the plan has to be to strengthen the Affordable Care Act, not get rid of it,
Vice
past his
President
prologue
Harris, thank
in terms
you.
of where Donald Trump stands on that.
I want to move to an issue that's important for a lot
She made
of...
a mistake. At number one, John McCain fought Obamacare for 10 years. But it wasn't only
I mean, that's
him.
true.
It was all of the Democrats that kept
why
it
are we
going.
doing this
And you know
role
what?
reversal?
We can do much better than Obama.
Why is Trump attacking John McCain, but Kamala is praising him?
Insurance for people. Private
This guy ran against Obama.
That's another
also,
thing
he's
she
dead.
does. People are paying privately for insurance that have worked hard and made money, and they want to have private.
He
She
was like
wants
the face of
everybody
the
to be
Republican
on
Party
government
for
insurance where
years.
you wait 6 months for an operation
This
that
is
you need
too
to
funny.
President Trump, thank you. We have another issue that we'd like to get to that's important for a number of Americans, in particular younger voters, and that's climate change.
I thought the show was supposed to be 90 minutes, but we are. That means it would have been for. I don't know how long. Are we making it up? How long are we going?
Existential threat. The question to you both tonight is, what would you do to fight climate change? And Vice President Harris, we'll start with you. 1 minute for you each.
Well, the former president had said the climate change is a hoax. And
John McCain
what
shit
we
talk
know is
Trump.
that it is
He's a
very
rhino.
real. You ask anyone
Anybody
lives in a state
anybody
who
who
has
says anything bad about Trump is a
experienced these extreme
rhino.
weather occurrences, who now is either being denied home insurance or it's being jacked up. You ask anybody who has been the victim of what that means in terms of losing their home, having nowhere to go. We know that we can actually deal with this issue. The young people of America care deeply about this issue. And I am proud that as vice president over the last 4
This is a
years,
dense
we have
forest
invested
of
$1 trillion
rhetoric.
in a clean energy economy, while we have also increased domestic gas production to historic levels. We have created over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs while I have been vice president. We have invested in clean energy to the point that we are opening up factories around the world. Donald Trump said he was going to create manufacturing jobs. He lost manufacturing jobs. And I'm also proud to have the endorsement of the United Auto Workers and Sean Fain, who also know that part of building a clean energy economy includes investing in American-made products, American automobiles. It includes growing what we can do around American manufacturing and opening up auto plants, not closing them like happened under Donald Trump.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
It didn't happen under Donald Trump. Let me just tell you. They
No,
lost
never
10,000
happened.
manufacturing
Not real.
jobs this last month. It's going. They're all leaving. They're building big auto plants in Mexico, in many cases owned
We
by
hate
China.
Mexico.
They're building these massive plants, and they think they're going to sell their cars into the United States because of these people. What they have given to China is unbelievable. But we're not going to let that. We'll put tariffs on
Is
those
this-
cars so they can't come
or
into our
is
country
this bonus
because
coverage?
They will kill.
How long is
United
it going to
Auto
go?
Workers and
I
any
thought it was
auto
90
worker,
minutes.
whether it's in
It's
Detroit
been
or
it's been
South
96
Carolina
minutes
or any
already.
other place. What they've done to business and manufacturing in this country is horrible. We have
Horrible.
nothing because they refuse. You know, Biden doesn't go after people because supposedly China paid him millions of dollars. He's afraid to do it. Between him and his son, they get all this money from Ukraine. They get all this money from all of these different countries. And then you wonder, why is he so loyal to this one, that one, Ukraine, China? Why is he?
China.
Why did he get $3.5 million from the mayor of Moscow?
Hunter Biden, China.
Why did she pay him $3.5 million? This is a crooked administration, and they're selling our country down the tubes.
President Trump, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be right back with closing statements from both of our candidates.
Oh my God.
An historic night, this ABC News presidential debate from Philadelphia. Back
We got more? We got closing statements still? That's crazy. We have like 15 minutes of overtime. That's crazy.
I was on the freeway, and a car just hit me out of nowhere, and I just
Jacoby and Myers injury lawyers.
So I just Googled, I got in an accident, what should I do? One of the first names that popped up was Jacoby Myers. What I appreciate the most with Jacoby Myers, that they were always there for me.
Is Jacoby Myers not an NFL player?
How I was doing,
A wide receiver for the a wide receiver for the Raiders? Yo, speaking of, there's Brock Purdy. He looks like he's green screened in. Saquon. Yeah, this one in stark contrast to the last debate. It really feels like Trump is left scrambling constantly on questions. But also, like, I definitely expected this to happen, but we are really relating everything to immigration. It's just absolutely everything. It's the fucking Mexicans' fault. God damn it. If it wasn't for Guatemala, everything would be so awesome. Hat off. Wow. Well, literally said that's what would happen. I mean, that's also what I said was going to happen. Everyone knew it to be true. Hat on. Chat, I'm coming for your cat. Yeah, the people from elsewhere, yeah, they love eating dogs and cats. Especially whenever they just find them on the street in Ohio. It's a real and true thing that actually happens and is a constant problem. They're gonna abduct your cat and then hang them up by the tree to dry into jerky. As an actual Venezuelan, the Toledo cats taste the best. I bet that dogs and cats don't even taste that good. It's probably like chicken. It's probably like chicken, but if it were like smaller and more tough. And then after we throw them in jail, we'll give them transgender surgeries. True. But also, like, is that a good thing? Like, is that a desirable outcome, or is this like punishment? Tom Guy, thanks for the prime. Anybody who has subbed during the debate, thank you also for the prime. Alerts are broken, and also, I'm busy, so if I miss you, I don't feel that bad. The illegal immigrant to transgender surgery to women's sports pipeline. Dude, that's like my number one most baffling political talking point in like all of politics ever, is being like the women's sports, the sanctity of women's sports and transgender athletes. It's like single digit number of cases. There's a millions and millions of female athletes and single digit number of cases of transgender athletes participating in them and be like performing well at all. You know, in 0.0001% of cases, the outcome has been impacted. So we should write legislation against it.
Welcome back tonight. The time has come for closing statements, and Vice President Harris, we begin with you.
So I think you've heard tonight two very different visions for our country. One that is focused on the future, and the other that is focused on the past. And an attempt to take us backward.
Give it the time, Donald.
But we're not going back. And I do believe that the American people know we all have so much more in common than what separates us. And we can chart a new way forward. And a vision of that includes having a plan, understanding the aspirations, the dreams, the hopes, the ambition of the American people, which is why I intend to create an opportunity economy, investing in small businesses, in new families, in what we can do around protecting seniors, what we can do that is about giving hardworking folks a break and bringing down the cost of living. I believe in what we can do together that is about sustaining America's standing in the world and ensuring that we have the respect that we so rightly deserve, including respecting our military, and ensuring we have the most lethal fighting force in the world.
Don't say it
I
again.
will be a president that will protect our fundamental rights and freedoms.
We have to
including
kill
the
as
right of
many
a woman to
people
make
as
decisions
anybody who
about
has
her
ever
own
killed
body
people.
and not have her government tell her what to do. I'll tell you, I started my career as a prosecutor. I was a DA, I was an attorney general, a United States senator, and now vice president. I've only had one client.
You could say the strongest fighting
And I'll tell you,
force.
as a prosecutor, I
That doesn't
never
imply that we're
asked
murdering people.
a victim or a witness, are you a Republican or a Democrat? The only thing I ever asked them, are you okay? And that's the kind of president we need right now. Someone who cares about you and is not putting themselves first. I intend to be a president for all Americans and focus on what we can do over the next 10 and 20 years to build back up our country by investing right now in you, the American people.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President
We're not doubling down on the most lethal fighting
she just
force.
started
Come
by
on.
saying she's going to do this, she's going to do that, she's going to do all these wonderful things. Why hasn't she done it? She's been there for 3.5 years. They've had 3.5 years to.
That's a
fix the
bold
border.
thing to say,
They've had
Mr.
3.5
former
years
President of
to
the United
create
States.
jobs and all the things we talked about. Why hasn't she done it? She should leave right now, go down to that beautiful White House, go to the Capitol, get everyone together and do the things you want to do, but you haven't done it, and you won't do it because you believe in things that the American
First of all,
people
not the
don't
president.
believe in.
Second of all, you were the
believe in
president.
Things like we're not going to frack. We're not going to take fossil fuel. We're not going to do things that are going to make this country strong, whether you like it or not.
If only we
Germany
fracked
tried
more,
that,
we'd be so
and
strong.
within 1 year, they were back to building normal energy plants. We're not ready for it. We can't sacrifice our country for the sake of bad vision. But I just ask one simple question. Why didn't she do it? We're a failing nation. We're a nation that's in serious decline. We're being
Just not
laughed
true.
at all
It's
over
just
the world. All over the world.
statistically,
I know the leaders very well. They're coming
factually
to
not
see
true.
me. They call me. We're laughed at all over the world. They don't understand what happened to us as a nation. We're not a leader. We don't have any idea what's going on. We have wars going on in the Middle East. We have wars going on with Russia and Ukraine. We're going to end up in a third world war, and it'll be a war like no other because of nuclear weapons, the power of weaponry. I rebuilt our entire military. She gave a lot of it away to the Taliban. She gave it to Afghanistan. What these people have done to our country, and maybe toughest of all, is allowing millions of people to come into our country. Many of them are criminals, and they're destroying our country. The worst president, the worst vice president in the history of our country.
In history. There's never been a worse
ABC
one.
News presidential debate from here in Philadelphia at the National Constitution Center. I'm Lindsay Davis.
And I'm David Muir. Thank you for watching here in the U.S. and all over the world, and from all of us here at ABC News. Good night.
Yippee!
And that concludes what may be the first and
then he-
only presidential election debate.
Please
of
do
this
another one.
2024
Please, God.
Cycle. It was fascinating to watch these two candidates spar over.
Cheney
more than an
shot a
hour
guy,
and
by
a
the
half.
way. It was an
Kamala
accident.
Harris, the
It was an
Vice
accident,
President of
folks.
the United States, on the offense for much of the debate against Donald Trump, and you could say she kept chumming the waters, and Trump kept taking the bait. Repeatedly, she kind of avoided the subject of the question that she was asked, pivoted to something else in order to goat Donald Trump, and then he went there. He missed opportunities on issues like immigration and other things to really point out some big differences with Kamala Harris and some of the weaknesses that some voters believe that the Biden-Harris administration has. There's much to discuss about the topics tonight, certainly because this was a big night for Kamala Harris in her first presidential debate, as Donald Trump has now completed 7 of these debates. John Dickerson, what did you see tonight?
Well, picking up on what you said, Nora, I think the strategy was, she prosecuted Donald Trump. She was relentless. And
Clear
I
win
think
for
it was,
Harris.
when they teach you about writing, they say,
Unfortunately,
show and
I
don't
don't think that the
Everybody
debates
knows pretty much the
actually
story about Donald Trump, so they
impact
weren't learning new information, but by
the
baiting
election.
him, I think the intent was to say,
The
now
voter
look
base
at-
all that
look at the way
much.
he's behaving, and he did get emotional at time, talking at one point about cats, and had some other
Eating cats and
people eating cats and dogs, which was very hard to follow. But I think think in that emotional moment, which he's going to be on the wrong side of the replays, part of this is what gets replayed the next day. And then she pointed in that and said, we don't want to go back to that. And that seemed to be her main argument. The secondary one, of course, being
it's a problem, folks.
I care about you, and he
they're
doesn't. And in that
they're
case,
putting
we
litter
talk about
boxes
plans and
in the
specificity.
classrooms, but
She
it doesn't
was
even matter
specific in
because
parts
they don't
about small
even
business, child care,
make it
down
there
payments
because
on
they get
homes,
eaten by
the
immigrants
opportunity fund,
first.
She said that a lot. She didn't go overboard, but I think the question will be, did she send a signal? If she didn't go overboard, Donald Trump was quite brief in terms of the only policy I could hear from him was about tariffs and deportation. So he said, I have concepts of a plan. But on the specificity,
yeah,
even though she wasn't overwhelming,
we did
she
not talk about policy at
Margaret
all.
Brennan, on that very issue, when the topic of immigration came up, which is one that
Our
Donald
cat
Trump
girls
likes
are
to
getting
hammer
eaten by
this
transgender
administration
prisoner
on.
immigrants.
He likes to call
This
Kamala
is true.
Harris wrongly the
This is a
border
true
czar. That
thing
was
that's
not
happening
specifically
in reality.
her job. She
Okay,
pivoted
chat.
to
So what do we
crowd
think?
sizes, and then he got distracted. And
No,
said,
not
wait a minute, I want to respond
obviously.
to the size of my rallies."
Kamala
And
did
then it
not
kind
shit
of
her
went
pants
veering
like Joe
off,
Biden
and he
did.
missed the opportunity to deliver some of the attacks that he has in the past on immigration.
No, I think you nailed it when you talk about chumming the waters and taking the bait. And that was clearly a planned strategy.
Yeah, that's
for the
pretty
vice
cool.
president here. We saw a demonstration of personality, not policy, to John's point. And within that, what I'm thinking of are some of the strongest lines where the vice president not only described him as easily manipulated, but showed she could do it in front of the cameras with lines like that. And she had this one
I miss
zinger.
Trump and
It's
Joe's
absolutely
toxic
well-known.
yowie.
Dictators and autocrats are rooting for you to be president because they are so clear they can manipulate you with flattery and favors. That is a powerful line in part because we are looking at someone who is arguing to be the first.
I like how
this
this time whenever Trump told a extremely obvious lie, the moderator said, "Yeah, this is a lie." Anyways,
next to me right now on this stage. I thought it was an interesting strategy. She did it again and again.
We'll get to foreign policy in a minute, but just quickly, I mean, she did say that Vladimir Putin would eat his lunch of Donald Trump, and then strangely, the only world leader that Donald Trump
would eat that boy
brought up
for
was
lunch.
Viktor Orban.
Right. Who is a NATO ally, but a very troublesome one who has been cozying up to Iran, to Russia, and to China.
Nancy Cordes, you're our chief White House correspondent. Tell us what you saw tonight.
Nora, I've been talking to Biden campaign officials, and they are elated. And keep in mind, this is the same bunch, Harris campaign officials who were Biden campaign officials.
Say Kamala Harris won this upscale blaming contest.
A month and a half ago.
I saw it, dude. Yeah, that was a real. That was a real fucking. I am a boomer and here's why segment.
It couldn't have gone better. He took the bait on everything. She said.
Fact checker says, actually, they're not eating cats in Springfield. He's like, I saw it on TV. What do you mean they're not eating cats? They said that they were eating cats on TV.
And it seemed to knock him off message every time. Her
source, I saw it on fucking Newsmax.
Number one, he's a liar. Number two, he sucks up to dictators and wants to be a dictator. And number three, he cares about himself and not you. And everything that she talked about, whether it was immigration,
Trump never called Harris Biden. He did kind of once.
To fall under one of those.
And then she said, "Well, first of all, I'm not Joe Biden." But like, in all honesty, their policies are pretty much the same.
This very small group of undecided voters, independents.
That's to say that Biden wasn't a bad candidate.
Interested in some of the things
from a policy
Trump
perspective. He's just a motherfucker who can't say words in front of a camera at all.
And I'll look out for you.
And that they determined that makes him unelectable because motherfucker. He says.
What were some of the strongest points he made tonight? What were some of the missteps?
But her policies are like the fuck. It's like the same fucking thing.
One of the benefits of being here in Philadelphia is you can roam around.
Go
Talk
Birds.
to some of the top Republicans in the country, Trump campaign officials, and their real review tonight is that they always believe that former President Donald Trump is a blockbuster political franchise for them to ride. And he's
a blockbuster franchise of politics.
As long as he can preserve his franchise politically speaking, keep his base together, and be seen as anti-establishment and a political weapon, then they feel like they're in a decent position as they go into this closing stretch.
We need our president to be a franchise.
All of the punches he wanted to.
You ever get back to John Undecided? updated.
President Harris,
Maybe we
but
will
at the same time,
here
they
shortly.
don't take seriously criticism of his debate performance because, as one put it to me, people don't care about how people in the political establishment and in the media see it, and it's ultimately this swing voter they're looking
Go Cowboys.
out for and hoping they see
Mods, ban
Trump
that guy.
as change.
Robert Costa, thank you very much. Ed O'Keefe, some of the topics that came up very early in the debate were not only the economy, immigration, but then reproductive rights, which is considered a strong suit for Kamala Harris as vice president. And on that issue, she did manage to tangle up Donald Trump. He got tangled up. He was unable to answer whether he would support a federal ban on abortion, repeatedly. And then he got tangled up on the issue of in vitro fertilization, where he kept saying, just calling it fertilization. And he said at one point, I'm for fertilization. I've been a leader on fertilization.
Is anyone
He did
for
not have comfort with
fertilization?
that issue.
Any fertilizers?
And the Harris campaign says that all indications are, at least in the moment, for example, they're looking at donations coming in as people sit there with their phones and watch this. And more than 70% of the donations in the first hour.
Go 49ers. Mods, ban that guy too.
Something they like to see. And across the party tonight, remember 75 nights ago we sat here and there was widespread panic across the Democratic Party. Tonight, widespread relief at what they saw. Repeatedly, how she was able to goad him into situations where he got personal, where he didn't give clear answers on issues like whether he would veto a federal ban. And they believe that she did exactly what was needed tonight to dispel any concerns about her performance, lay out her strategy, reinforce the position.
This
on
debate was
abortion
fun
rights
and all,
especially.
but like,
even her
I'm
answers
honestly
towards the
kind of
end
tired
about,
of watching Trump
about
debates
his
because
attacks on her
like,
and whether or not
at this point,
he's
you've
being
seen
racist
so
and
much of
sexist in
him.
doing so. So
You know what
across
he's
the
gonna
board,
do.
Real pleasure, real relief that this went.
You already know what Trump's going to do before he does it. He's very predictable.
So, Major, there were probably
he does the same
tens
things.
Of millions of people.
The VP debate, though.
This
get
debate,
JD Vance in front of the mic. Tim Walz. That one is going to be
the central question for both
pretty fun, I
campaigns
think.
is, right now, has Trump reached his ceiling, and has Kamala Harris reached her ceiling? The Harris campaign believes there's room to grow.
That one's going to be a
The Trump
riot, I
campaign wants
feel.
to bring her down because they think they're at their ceiling. And tonight's performance was loud, extravagant with lies, and based on that Trump support that already exists. The Harris obligation was
no couch jokes today, but I felt like it was kind of unlikely.
With more persuasive language.
The VP debate, couch jokes, they're on the table. It's going to be. I hope it's still poignant at the time.
And there was a lot of policy today. It may not have been a lot of new policy, but there also the performative aspect of tonight. And it was interesting to see Kamala Harris in many of those two shots where, while her mic wasn't open, she sort of laughed at him. She put her hand up to her chin. What did you see?
She was clip farming. She was
exactly
live.
She was doing. She
live
set the
Kamala
tone when she
reaction
walked out, shook his hand, and
content
introduced herself by
constantly.
name, which I thought was very, very
Say
interesting.
that 5 times fast.
She gave a lob to black and brown voters, talking about Project 2025. Very.
Oh, they had
early on.
she
She understood the split screen.
The evidence
so when he
queued up.
felt that he was going a little far, or she felt he was going a little far.
Your beard looks like a prop.
Clear.
That's because it is.
Ed Gordon,
It's
thanks,
taped
everybody.
on.
And
I'm
we're
gonna
be right
remove
back
it
with more analysis.
after I stop streaming. Alrighty.
I was on the freeway and a car just hit me. Out of
Jacoby
nowhere. I just
Myers,
didn't know
shout
what
out.
to do.
That's gonna be the end of my stream. Everybody can go and say hello to Ouija the God. I'm shutting it off. Great time. What a wonderful time to watch American politics. Everyone can go and watch Cade play Astrobot. Apparently the only good PlayStation game. I'm leaving now. Goodbye. I'm gonna go eat something. Bye bye. Fun hanging with you all. Bye.